Would you be the jerk for flat out refusing to consider possibly paying your oldest daughter to babysit their younger siblings? We'll get to that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for prioritizing my Parrot over my stepdaughter's wedding? So, I'm the owner of a wonderful rescued macaw. She's a wonderful bird but has a lot of issues due to an abusive former home. I've had her for 3 years and since then haven't taken any vacations or trips away as it would be too disruptive for her. She distrusts everyone and is very reliant on her routine. I love her deeply and I'm happy to make sacrifices for her. They're permanent toddlers and very intelligent birds. I met my husband by the time his kids were older. My stepdaughter was 16 at the time. We married when she moved away for college. Nevertheless, I thought we'd managed to have a decent relationship. Until now. My stepdaughter's getting married in March, and naturally there's a lot of preparation involved. They're wanting a huge traditional wedding, and she's stressed out of her mind. They live out of state, and she invited me recently to come visit her for a week to help make wedding plans and spend time with their 2-year-old. I declined, and she insisted to know why, acting very hurt, and I explained the Parrot. Well, it all went downhill from there. She caused a massive fuss with her dad, saying she never got a mother figure and I never accepted her as my full-blood daughter and this is the ultimate snub for a silly animal. That I'm cold and emotionless. I feel really hurt and I can tell he agrees with her even though he's refusing to take sides. But I don't see why I should be expected to take holiday time off work to babysit and bond all of a sudden. And I don't see how I'm a monster for this. Am I the jerk here? I'm definitely no expert as far as taking care of birds and how important it is to keep that bond and always be available for them, but it almost sounds like OP can't do anything because of this bird. What do you guys think? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for wanting to leave my money to charity and not my daughter? I, 58-year-old female, have stage 4 cancer, about a year left. I'm going to be leaving behind about $2 million, and I've decided to take one last vacation and give the rest to charity. My husband Bill, 66-year-old male, is in good health, but he'll be set financially and we've decided together that he doesn't need the money. I do have a daughter, Amity, 29-year-old female, and a son, Caleb, 24-year-old male. She has 3 kids, 14 and 1-year-old twins. And Bill thinks I should leave her half of the money. He says she could use it and that it would still amount to $1 million for charity. However, I don't really want to give the money to my daughter. She had her son at 15, and because she was in high school, Bill and I ended up raising him until he was 7. We also paid for Amity's college. My reasoning is that we've already given her childcare for 7 years and college, so she already received the payout from us, even though I was alive and well at the time. Though it seems Bill already told Amity that we'd help her out and she was getting half of the inheritance. So I had to correct her and tell her I'm not giving her or her brother any money. This has been blowing up the family. Amity was furious because she says she's in a bad financial place, and she can't believe I'm not helping her out even though I could. Bill understands where I'm coming from but says Amity is living in a trailer and I could at least help her out. I already did help her. But am I the jerk if I don't include her in the will? At the end of the day, it's your money to do with as you want. I think it's a bit weird to try to punish your kid for having a kid so early. I just know if I was in Amity's situation, I think I would always be resentful of the fact that you had a wealth of money to help set your kids up for their futures without you, and because they didn't make the best personal choices in their lives, they don't get anything. Does OP really care that much about their kids if they're doing this? Our next story is, am I the jerk for not making extra pancakes for my niece? I woke up at 5 a.m. craving pancakes while on vacation with my in-laws. So I decided to quickly make myself and my son some since we were the only ones awake besides my husband who doesn't eat pancakes. My sister-in-law's daughter came downstairs just as my son was finishing up and started crying because there were no more pancakes for her. I did try to comfort her, but I have really bad morning sickness after I eat, and I was starting to feel sick, so I had to take her to her parents who were still sleeping. Long story short, my sister-in-law was upset I only made pancakes for myself and my son when there were others in the house who also needed to eat breakfast. She said I was selfish and I should have known my niece would have wanted some too, so I could have made extra just in case. Am I the jerk? I just gotta say, was OP really in the wrong at all here? Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend he's a gold digger by his own standards? I have a boyfriend, Aiden. For some reason, he really dislikes his best friends, Daniel's girlfriend, Lila. I don't exactly get the reason for his dislike. My guess is that Aiden and Daniel were kind of outcasts in high school, and Aiden adapted this us against the world view with his only friend. Lila, on the other hand, is a very lively, outgoing, bubbly girl with tons of friends. Aiden's newest reason to dislike Lila is that Daniel plans to take her to an all-expenses-paid trip abroad. He was ranting to me about Lila being a gold digger and using Daniel for his money. I try to tell him that Daniel taking his girlfriend on a vacation doesn't make said girlfriend a gold digger, but Aiden couldn't be reasoned with. It bothered me so much, especially since my family took Aiden to countless vacations free of charge back when we were still in university. I mean, 15 plus vacations, mostly to different countries. I pointed out to Aiden that he came to plenty of vacations with me and my family, but he said that was different, because he only came for me so that I'd have more fun with him there with me and we build shared memories. I asked him why what Daniel and Lila are doing is any different. Daniel can afford to take Lila with him, he'll have more fun with her there, and they'll make wonderful shared memories. If that makes Lila a gold digger, he must be a gold digger too by his own standards. Aiden got mad at me and said that he's extremely disappointed and hurt that I look at him like that. He got really offended and now seems to think that I actually accused him of being a gold digger instead of just trying to show him the error in his reasoning. Was I wrong for trying to draw a parallel between him and Lila? I don't want to make him feel bad for coming with us on those vacations. I loved having him there. Do I owe him an apology? Am I the jerk? I just think Aiden has his own weird bias going on here. This next story is, am I the jerk for publicly sharing my pregnancy and saying I don't care about my sister's miscarriage? I, 27-year-old female, am pregnant with my first child. As expected, I'm very happy in sharing news of my pregnancy on Facebook, as I have several family members who live overseas and also I want to. This is my first child and I'm beyond happy. The issue is my older sister, 29-year-old female, who's infertile and has given up on children after 9 miscarriages. I and my sister have never had a good relationship. She was sick as a baby and nearly died. The trauma of it caused my parents to favor her and place her above me. I was always expected to make myself as small as possible to accommodate her. She always got a cake and more presents on my birthday so she wouldn't feel left out. I was told to hide my grades as she did very badly at school. I was also not allowed to display any trophies in my room because she might see them and get upset. My sister 100% leaned into this and made my life heck. She would make stuff up so my parents would take stuff from me and give it to her. I was even told not to go to my prestigious university, think Ivy League but in my country, because it would upset her. When I chose to go, my parents cut me off, which was fine as my paternal grandparents who raised me took care of everything. Since then, I've been low contact with my family and only see them around the holiday at my grandparents' place. They weren't invited to my wedding. When I got pregnant, I shared the announcement online and everybody congratulated me except my parents and my sister, who harassed me and reported my post so it would get taken down. I blocked them all. I saw them again on New Year's at the grandparents' place. When they saw me, my sister started screaming at my grandparents, saying how could they invite me after what I did to her. She was also screaming at my belly as it offended her. She kept crying and saying how could I do this to her. I told her I did nothing to her. She went on and on about her miscarriages and how hard they were on her, but I snapped and told her I don't care. She's not my sister. She's my bully who tormented me my whole life. I owe her nothing. My life has nothing to do with her. This got my parents mad and they screamed at me too. My uncles ended up throwing them out and it ruined the party. My family said I did nothing wrong, but my parents and my sister's friend have been mass reporting my Facebook account until I ended up deleting it. These people who are only related by blood are clear-cut bullies and jealous. This next story is, am I the jerk for not getting a part-time job while my partner works full-time? My partner works full-time while I've deliberately remained unemployed for the past 2 years. Instead, I spend about 20 hours per week as a charity volunteer and doing pro bono work for friends and family. Context: my partner, early 40s, and I, early 50s, have happily lived together for several years. In summer 2020, I took forced early retirement due to severe COVID hospitalization, which destroyed my physical and mental health. After much rehabilitation, I've recovered 50% of my physical health, although the mental challenges remain. Near-death experience and all, our financial situation is comfortable as we own a mortgage-free home in a very high cost of living city. We live a middle-class lifestyle, and our combined cash and investments are about $1.5 million, excluding the home. We have no debt, and our cash flow covers all expenses. We split everything evenly. Recently, my partner's been gently pressuring me to get a real job instead of doing so much free work for others, but I'm very happy to be out of the rat race and have stubbornly refused. Am I the jerk? I'm hesitant to really say for sure, but if this is a situation where the partner is working hard to make sure that you stay afloat, and you can do at least a little bit of something to make it easier on them, and you're just saying no because it's nicer to not have to do anything, then OP probably is. Our next story is, am I the jerk for taking back the paintball gun my wife bought our daughter? Our son, 17, and daughter, 14, are both very sporty. They're both really into archery and are in team sports at school. Our son's been saving money lately, doing a lot of extra chores and babysitting around the neighborhood. On Saturday, he showed us what he had bought with his money, a very expensive paintball gun. He said he was going to join a local league. Our daughter thought this was the coolest thing ever. She wanted to try it, but he said she could only fire it under his strict supervision because it had cost him so much money, and only after he was done breaking it in. She was disappointed, but she accepted it. I told her that maybe she would get one for her birthday, and she was excited by the idea. Yesterday, my wife bought the exact same paintball gun with the intention of giving it to our daughter. I told her that was a horrible idea because it sent a terrible message to our son. If he works hard for something and we just buy our daughter the exact same thing, we're sending him the message that his work has no value. My wife said it's unfair for one child to have something the other doesn't, if it's something both would enjoy, and that we need to reward her for being so mature yesterday after the paintball gun was rubbed in her face. Literally didn't happen. We argued back and forth, but I just took the paintball gun back to the store before the kids got home. My wife is furious with me. She said I'm being a terrible father. I think giving our daughter that paintball gun would send a terrible message to both kids, and I'm sticking by that. But my wife said I had no right to overrule her like that and was being a massive dong. I acknowledge that part was crappy, but am I really a dong or a jerk? This is really about promoting the value of hard work to both of your kids. The son saved up and worked to get that gun. Just imagine how it feels for you to be held responsible to get your own things. You work hard and you get it. And because your sibling's jealous, your parents just hand them a brand new one. What message does that send? Our next story is, am I the jerk? Daughter dyed her hair badly and refuses to go to school. Daughter, 14, has always been naturally blonde. However, the last few months, brown hair has been coming through her roots. She's asked us if she could dye it earlier this month. We said yes, but only if it's done professionally. An appointment is booked for the 8th of February, a very popular salon with a good reputation, meaning long wait times, but if it's being done right. Reason for this is both her sister, and my wife have very sensitive scalps. Last time her older daughter used an at-home kit, it went badly wrong. Doctors kind of wrong. Youngest daughter was happy with this and agreed to wait, but this weekend went out with her friend and bought an at-home kit, dyeing her hair at her friend's house without any adult assistance. Well, now it's orange. We offered to buy a brown or black kit to cover it until her appointment, but she screamed she's a blonde, not brunette, and hasn't really left her room since. She is refusing to go to school until we fix it. I said I don't have a magic hair fixing spell, and the choices go dark for 3 weeks or put up with the orange color. We phoned the salon, but they can't move up the appointment, but will contact in case of a cancellation. So, Reddit, am I the jerk for sending my daughter to school with self-inflicted orange hair? This is a classic learn the consequences of your own actions moment. They're 14, they're gonna think this is the end of the world, but they'll get over it and they'll forget about it down the road. Our next story is, am I the jerk for making a scene and kicking my cousin out of a baby shower? My wife, 28-year-old female, is pregnant with our first child. She's about 5 months along, and I, 29-year-old male, am very excited to be a father. This past weekend, we had a baby shower at our house. We invited both sides of our family rather than trying to do 2 separate showers. I have a cousin, Sue, 22-year-old female, who I wasn't going to invite because she's very open about being child-free, to the point, in my opinion, of being anti-natalist. She said some very out there things in the past about these topics, and I figured she wouldn't want to come even if we invited her. But after getting pressure from both my mom and Sue's mom about not leaving her out, I reluctantly sent Sue an invite, and to my surprise, she accepted. For the most part, things went well at the shower, but when my wife started opening presents, Sue kept making comments. First, it was about how much waste diapers create and how wasteful baby clothes are because they outgrow them so fast. Then it was about how so many baby and kids' toys are made overseas where workers are taken advantage of. Then, when my mom told us that they'd already set up a college fund for our child, Sue made a comment about how parents shouldn't force their kids out of the house at 18, and how if people had to support their kids all through life, maybe less people would have kids. It was at this point that I pulled Sue aside and talked to her in another room. I told her that if she hates the idea of kids so much, then she might as well just leave. She said she was just stating facts and that the truth can never be controversial. I told her that in that case, I have a hard truth for her. I told her that the only reason I invited her is because her mom practically begged me to, and I don't want her in our house, and that she's no longer welcome, so she should leave. I must have raised my voice louder than I thought because my mom and Sue's mom came into the room and asked what was going on. Sue said that I'm kicking her out because she's child-free. I told her I'm kicking her out because she's being a jerk on a day that's supposed to be about celebrating my wife's pregnancy, and all Sue is doing is making it about her BS beliefs. My mom and Sue's mom tried to calm things down, but I insisted that Sue leave right then and there, or I would be forced to call the police because she's currently trespassing. Sue grabbed her things and stormed out, and my mom and Sue's mom got mad at me. They told me that Sue was just stating her opinion and that some of the things she said are true. I told them that there's a time and a place for that kind of conversation, and a baby shower sure as heck isn't it. I told them this is exactly why I didn't want to invite Sue in the first place, and as far as I'm concerned, they are just as much to blame as Sue is. Literally no one is happy, and the whole baby shower became about something else instead of focusing on my wife and our coming baby. Those other family members are clearly so biased it hurts. They can't see and understand how Sue is just destroying the whole baby shower. This next story is, am I the jerk for giving my son's boyfriend a better birthday gift than my daughter's fiancé? My daughter invited me to her fiancé's birthday dinner. I don't know him very well or his interests. They've been dating less than a year. I wrote him a check for $100 and a card saying I'm excited that he's joining the family and looking forward to getting to know him better. The next day, my daughter and I were chatting, and she asked if I didn't like her fiancé. I said I did. She said it hurt her feelings that I just gave him a check when I gave her brother's boyfriend an expensive subscription to a Cheese of the Month club for his birthday a few months ago, and they aren't even engaged. She said it felt like I was expressing disapproval. I told her that marriage and engagement aren't the only important relationship statuses. Her brother and his boyfriend have been together for almost 5 years and live together. I know him really well and know he loves food and would like the Cheese of the Month club. I didn't know what her fiancé would like. Nothing really stuck out to be as good an idea like the cheese club. She said it felt like and looked like a lack of effort. I apologized, but I'm still not sure I was really wrong. $100 is hardly a terrible birthday gift. I'm sure by next year I'll know him better and get him something more personal. Also, not to be like that, but she could have helped me out and pointed me in the right direction. I'm not gonna lie, I find it incredibly hard to buy gifts for almost anybody. She can complain all she wants about not getting something personal, but yeah, she's not gonna help you out. I mean, what more can you really be expected to do? Our next story is, am I the jerk for insisting on meeting in public for custody exchanges? I, 31-year-old male, am divorced from my ex, 33-year-old female, for several years now, 50-50 custody. It's defaulted to me having them 80% of the time since the divorce. Of my 2 children, 13-year-old male and 9-year-old female, the past few years have been littered with false CPS reports and them coming to my house talking to my children, just for a few weeks to go by and everything's closed and we move on just for it to happen again. We moved a few months ago, and I disclosed my address to the court and all parties involved except my ex. Since we moved, the CPS visits have stopped completely. I keep in touch with a caseworker who's helped me with finding my son help with his mental health. Everything's been kosher for months. We've been using the school schedule for custody exchanges as it makes things easier. I recently found out from my niece, ex-bio family, that my ex weaponized CPS to make my life heck. Now with a holiday, Martin Luther King, landing on an exchange day, my ex is demanding to drop them off at my house. I've told her we can meet at the police department and do a secure exchange. There's marked parking spots with surveillance cameras and everything, and she is refusing, saying that I'm hiding things and she just needs to know. Am I the jerk for insisting on all meetings and interaction being through monitored channels? When somebody tries to weaponize lies and frame you as a bad person that does awful things, I don't blame you for wanting to make sure that everything is totally on the table and clear cut. This next story is, am I the jerk for not paying my daughter to babysit her younger siblings? So my 20-year-old daughter is currently a college student. She lives in my house free of rent. I only ask her to do a few things around the house from time to time, like cooking and cleaning. Typical things you're expected to do on a daily basis anyways. Occasionally she has to watch over her younger brothers since I may be busy with work, or when I need a break to hang out with my girlfriend. My daughter recently spoke up to me about how she feels I'm putting too much of a workload on her back, which I don't see how. She told me she's okay with cooking and cleaning around the house, but having to watch over her siblings was annoying and stressful and that it's taking away from her studies. That pissed me off because I myself went to school while having to pay bills and take care of her as a baby alongside my ex-wife. I told her she was acting very privileged and that if I could do it, so could she. She didn't like that very much and stormed off into her room. Well, she went behind my back and told my sister about how bad I was treating her. My sister's very kind and gullible at times, so she called me and said the least I could do was give her an allowance for the chores I make her do. I explained why I felt that wasn't necessary, and she told me not to compare my situation to my daughter's, since apparently I put myself in the position I was in back then, which I guess is a fair argument. But since she's living in my house rent-free and I'm paying for her college, I feel that in and of itself should count as an allowance. So I just wanted to ask whether I'm wrong for not wanting to pay her extra money to do basic chores. Not the jerk for not paying the allowance, but you definitely are the jerk for trying to go on that emotional manipulation route of saying, when I was younger, you were a baby and I had to do all that stuff and take care of things. Doesn't even apply the same way to their own daughter. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that we will not be having any contact with her anymore? This may scream entitlement to some, and I totally get that. A part of me feels the same way. I'm 29-year-old female, and I've been married to my husband Jack for 10 years. 6 months ago, Jack got into a really bad car accident. He was in a coma for almost 5 weeks, and currently has physical therapy 4 times a week, as well as a visiting nurse who comes twice a week. I've been working 60+ hours a week while 7 months pregnant. I found out I was pregnant a week after his accident. And I keep coming up shorter and shorter every single month for rent because not only did they up the rent by $400, but Jack's medical bills are getting more expensive as well. I can't afford anything anymore, to a point where I qualified for EBT just last week, but last month I was served an eviction notice. I knew it was coming. I'd been paying what I could, $500 here, $700 there, but the landlord ultimately decided that it hardly covered a portion of the rent and had me served. I was able to get a 30-day extension by the courthouse because of my husband's condition, so I have now 27 days to find somewhere else for us to live. Jack's sister, my sister-in-law, 46-year-old female, offered us a room. She has 3 extra rooms. One is her daughter's playroom, and the other one is her office. The 3rd bedroom is downstairs, right in front of the front door and next to the bathroom, so it was honestly perfect, and I was so stupidly excited that I wouldn't have to bring my disabled husband to a homeless shelter. We have no other option. I thanked her profusely. This was a week ago, and started packing our stuff on my downtime. Well, she texted me this morning and said she changed her mind. Said that her and my husband's 13-year-old niece wanted her own room for when she came to visit twice a month, and she gave her the room instead. As an alternative, she started sending me Facebook ads for housing that was just as expensive as what we were paying now, knowing I can't only not afford it, but also don't have money at all for a down payment. I have $50 to my name. The savings is depleted. I just didn't answer her because it destroyed me. Well, she texted again just a minute ago and said, "You can't be pissed at me, it's my house." In the midst of feeling incredibly hurt, panicked, and everything else I was feeling, I texted back and said, "I truly cannot see myself having any contact whatsoever with you for a while." At which point she said I was childish. So I doubled down and said, "Scratch that. I won't be having contact with you anymore." I'm being told I'm in the wrong by mother-in-law who lives in a nursing home. Am I the jerk? I'm almost wondering if there's more than what's actually being told here. I feel like OP's sister-in-law offered the room and then talked to their husband about it afterwards, and the husband didn't want anything to do with it, and they're just trying to save face. But regardless of whatever the issue is, you don't promise something like that to somebody who has nowhere else to go if you're not 100% committed to bringing them into your house. This next story is, am I the jerk for skipping my stepdaughter's wedding? I, 50-year-old female, have 2 stepchildren, Sarah, 23-year-old female, and Mike, 28-year-old male. I've been in their lives since Sarah was 2. Sarah's mom, Kate, was a drug addict. When Sarah was 3, she lost all her parental rights because of her addiction. Kate left after that and didn't have any contact until Sarah was 17. That's when Kate reached out to us, saying that she was clean and wanted a relationship with the kids. My husband Rob was against this, but I wanted to give her a chance. We met with her, and it turns out she'd been clean for a while, going to therapy, and had a decent job. Mike was against meeting her, and to this day insists I'm his only mom and Kate is dead to him. Sarah was more open to Kate and resented Mike for rejecting her. I explained that Mike was older and witnessed Kate as her worst, so he has a different relationship with her, while Sarah only remembers her after getting clean. This issue still caused a lot of resentment between them and me. Kate blamed me for Mike being hostile and resented me. It didn't help that Sarah started rejecting me for Kate. She stopped spending time with me no matter what I did and stopped calling me mom. I told her how hurt I was, how she didn't have to choose, she could have us both. I never had an issue with Sarah and Kate. I only had an issue with being rejected. Sarah told me that while she appreciated me at the end of the day, Kate was her and Mike's real mom. This crushed me. The final straw was when she didn't invite me to her high school graduation. I told her if she didn't want to be my daughter, then fine. From then on, she would be my husband's kid. Mike is no contact with her as well. 3 months ago, she came over with her fiancé, who we didn't even know existed, to invite us to their wedding. She said she wanted me at the bridal party, but I refused. I told her we hadn't even had a relationship in years because of her wishes, and it felt uncomfortable for me to take on that role when I barely knew her now. She said she was sorry. I told her I wasn't interested. She got angry and said I had to be there because, and I quote, "What are people gonna think when both my brother and my dad's wife aren't there? Gramps, paternal grandfather, is gonna get pissed off too." I told her she clearly didn't want me there and only cared about appearances and being on her Gramps' good side. He's rich. I'm not coming, nor am I having a relationship with her. She started crying and begging for forgiveness, but it felt like crocodile tears to me. After she left, she kept texting me trying to get me to change my mind. On the day of the wedding, she texted that she was gonna leave an empty seat for me and that I was welcome anytime if I changed my mind. I still didn't go. Rob is mad at me, saying I ruined his daughter's wedding and made her cry, that all she wanted was me there, and that this was a chance to fix our family. Mike, who's also no contact with her, is on my side. So what do you guys think? Considering how everything went down, was OP in the right here to skip the wedding? Were they a jerk for it? I'd like to know what you guys think. Am I the jerk for taking my kids to my parents' house to sleep because my husband will not enforce the rules when his parents visit? We live 3 blocks away from my parents, and they see our kids almost every day. Her husband's parents live a couple states away and only see the kids a few times a year. It's easy when we go see them since we only visit when the kids are off school, but when they come see us, it's at random intervals throughout the year. Not a problem really, they're excellent grandparents, with one small exception. They think our rules go out the window when they visit. It's mean that we don't make their kids their favorite food every day. Why can't the kids watch TV with them before they do their chores and homework? Why do the kids have to be in bed so early? It drives me crazy that I'm the bad guy because my husband won't put his foot down, so I have to do it. They came last week. On Monday, as soon as dinner was over, they wanted the kids to pay attention to them. They wanted to take the kids to see Avatar. On a school night, my husband allowed it. Last straw. I told him that he knew that throwing the kids off their schedule screwed me over. So I gave him the choice of either enforcing our rules or I would. He said he would take care of it. Second night, there was a hockey game on. He wanted to watch it with our son who loves hockey. I reminded my husband that our son had chores to do and homework. He said it was just a hockey game. I told the kids to get their stuff. I took them and a change of clothes and their homework to my parents' house. My mom and dad will watch them and then take them to school in the morning. I went back home and they were waiting for me. I'm being a controlling and abusive person by denying them time with the kids. I'm not the only person allowed to make decisions regarding the kids. They came all this way to see them and I'm being a jerk by keeping them on a schedule. Fine. They are visiting for a couple of weeks. Wednesday, after I picked up the kids from school and dropped them off at my home with my in-laws, then I went out for the first time in ages. I told my husband I would be out late and didn't want to wake anyone, so I'd be at my parents' house. Did the same thing Thursday through tonight. My husband's been calling and texting and coming over to tell me I need to come home because the house is a disaster and his parents won't do anything. They're on vacation and they're there to see the kids, not clean up. The kids are having a fun time with no rules, and he's been contacted by the school because no homework was turned in on Thursday or Friday. I didn't answer those texts. I said I would be back after his parents left, or he enforced the rules. He said I was taking it too far and that it was affecting his work. Honestly, tough crap. I think it's nice just for OP to be able to pull back that magic mom curtain where things magically get done and things are magically always on schedule. All I know is if I was in OP situation, I'd be upset too because things gotta keep on ticking. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving my wife an infant to attend a funeral? My wife and I recently had our first baby, and she's 3 months old now. A few weeks ago, my family was hit with a massive tragedy. I'm still struggling to come to terms with it. I wanted to travel to the funeral, but my wife didn't want to come with the baby. She didn't want me to go either and said I should be spending the time with her and our daughter. And once she's a little older, we can all go to visit my family. I tried to explain this is important for me, but she wouldn't hear it. Mind you, I was planning to go for less than 3 days. Left the night before the funeral and flew back the morning after. I went last week, and during this time, my sister-in-law came and stayed with my wife. My wife is mad at me and said it was selfish of me to go, and my priority should be them right now. I really don't think I did anything wrong here, but my wife and even my sister-in-law said what I did was completely wrong. Here for opinions because I guess we're all biased one way or another. In my opinion, I understand why OP's wife feels the way they do, but it was only 3 days. It is a one-time thing. It's not like OP's taking a quick trip to Vegas to gamble for a few nights with the boys. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my wife to lighten up over a cheating joke my coworker made? My wife and I ran into our coworker earlier today. He's never met her. I introduced her to him. He jokes around often, and when I introduced them to each other, he said, "I thought Alexis was your wife." She's a coworker. Him and I laughed, but not my wife. He noticed because he got serious and said, "I'm kidding, nice to meet you." After we got home, my wife asked me who Alexis was. I told her she's a coworker. She then asked me, "So what's that all about?" I told her if she's serious and it was clearly a joke to lighten up a little. That didn't help, and she said to never laugh at things like that. I thought it was a harmless joke. Needless to say, she wasn't happy still when I left. Am I the jerk? It's one thing if everybody's in the know, but she clearly doesn't understand, and there seems to be a lot of context about who this lady is and why there's making that joke. That's going way over her head, and I feel like a lot of people would be a bit put off by that experience. This next story is, am I the jerk for pulling my daughter from a water park trip because her teacher made her stay with a kid she doesn't like? My daughter Bryn, female, 9, is going on a trip to a nearby water park with her class next week. She loves water and has been talking about it for months, so I was a bit thrown off when she came home crying a few days ago and told me she didn't want to go. I asked her why, and she wouldn't tell me because she thought I'd think she's a bad person. When I finally coaxed it out of her, she said her teacher, Miss N, had forced her to be the buddy of her classmate Ben for the entirety of the trip. She was to ride the bus with Ben to and from the trip, eat lunch with him, and go on all the rides with him instead of spending time with her friends. She then said nobody likes Ben because he whines whenever they have to do work and picks his nose and wipes boogers everywhere. I was horrified, not only because Miss N had made Bryn do such a thing, but also because she had made her believe she was a bad person for not wanting to. Unfortunately, this wasn't my first experience with Miss N, as she frequently used my soft-spoken, intelligent older daughter as a behavior buffer for the naughty boys, until I threatened to report her to the superintendent. It's clear to me that Miss N is still too comfortable with enforcing archaic gender roles on her kids and forcing girls to do unpaid emotional labor for the sake of the boys. I immediately sent Miss N an email condemning her actions. She sent me back an email with a bunch of BS that basically ended with, "If Bryn goes on the trip, she has to be Ben's buddy." Fine. I informed her Bryn would not be attending then. I immediately booked VIP tickets the same day her class was going, so she could still go to the park and see her friends. What happened next, I wasn't expecting. Bryn is quite popular, so I've gotten to know a lot of the moms in her class. When I let them know what Miss N did, some of them were so horrified that they also pulled their kids out of the trip. In total, 8 kids out of a class of 20 are either not going or going with us. Today, I got an email from Miss N saying that because almost half the class isn't going, they either have to raise the cost for the other students or not go at all. She practically begged me to let Bryn go and tell all the other parents to let their kids go, promising she wouldn't make Bryn do anything she didn't want to do. I told her she should have thought about that before she tried to make my daughter do her job. My husband said I was being a bit petty and that Miss N clearly feels bad about what she did, and I should let Bryn go as I've already gotten my way. He asked me if I really wanted to deprive children of what they've been waiting for all year. The thing is, if this wasn't Miss N's first offense, I probably would have agreed. But she has a pattern of this type of behavior, and hopefully this will put a stop to it. Plus, if she has to explain this to her superiors, I have receipts. Is my husband right? Or am I justified? I definitely would have a guilty conscience for all the other kids that didn't get to go because of this, but I totally understand why OP did what they did. Has there ever been a kid that enjoyed being forcefully paired up with somebody they didn't necessarily want to be paired up with? I know people personally that told me horror stories of how there was some kid in their class that was lonely and so they had to go spend time with them and hold their hand or something. And it's just weird and honestly creepy. This next story is, am I the jerk for removing every single toy/baby item from my parents' house? So a little backstory. I, 24-year-old female, and my husband, 26-year-old male, due to financial struggles, have to live with my parents. We're staying here until I can get a remote job and he can get a better one where we can actually afford to save money to buy a house. We live in a 2-story house with unfortunately only one kitchen, which is downstairs. My husband and I, along with our children, live upstairs and my parents live downstairs. We spend most of the day downstairs because my children enjoy spending time with my mother and she helps me out a lot with them. Anyway, we call the upstairs our house and the downstairs their house. We offered to pay rent and utilities in the past, but my father refused to accept any money from us. We insisted a few times, but decided to let it go when he wouldn't budge. My father is a truck driver, so he's home every 2 weeks or so. My grandmother from my mother's side is currently visiting from Europe, so there's a lot of people in the house. We have 2 boys, a 2.5-year-old and a 9-month-old. My 9-month-old recently started crawling, so I decided to get him a playpen for when we're downstairs. When I wanted to assemble it downstairs, my father told me to go assemble it upstairs, "'cause there's enough crap here that everyone trips over anyways." Okay, no problem. I went upstairs and assembled it, to which my mother got mad because I didn't assemble it downstairs as she and I discussed it before. My father threw a tantrum because I have so many baby things downstairs. And yes, there was a crib, a bouncer, and now there would also be a playpen for the little one. My mother got upset and brought the playpen downstairs, to which my father said, "Oh yeah, bring more crap here, there's not enough. With the crib and the bouncer and the toys, yeah, why don't you bring that crap here too?" This hurt me because, in not so many direct words, he basically told me that my son's stuff bothers him. It made me feel like my son's presence bothers him as well, so I got upset and removed everything that was my son's and brought them upstairs. I was so pissed off about it because no one ever thinks about my feelings, especially my father. He always says the most hurtful things and doesn't even care or realize how much his words hurt me. Anyway, a little after I brought everything upstairs, my grandmother came to me and told me that I don't know how to act. I'm disrespectful towards my father by doing that blah blah. Like, excuse me? Now it's somehow made to be my fault? I've changed my view of my grandmother after I had my kids. My word means nothing when it comes to my children and what I say. The way my father talks to me like I'm a doormat, but if I stand up for myself, she will be the first one to tell me to shut up because I'm a child and that I shouldn't talk back. I'm just so done with these people. I'm actually considering moving to my in-laws who live in Germany just to get away. So Reddit, am I the jerk? I think he can be totally justified in being uncomfortable with how much stuff is around, but let's be real, it's just their demeanor, right? Nobody deserves to have to deal with somebody who's just a total jerk like that. I sympathize with the father, I get why they feel the way they do, but I hate being around people that display the kind of behavior he does. The passive-aggressive, "oh yeah, bring more crap down here." All it does is just instigate. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not letting an elderly woman have my son's seat on the bus? Alright, so my son, 17, has weekly therapy appointments that I take him to. Unfortunately, my husband let our daughter borrow his car and then had an emergency at work, so he had to use my car. So my son and I had to take the bus. It wasn't ideal, but I'd rather the bus than miss an appointment. While it isn't my place to share why he goes to therapy, I will say that he will often forget to eat. I usually make sure he's fed, but due to the mess in the morning, it slipped my mind. The bus wasn't too crowded, but all the seats were taken. My son wasn't doing too well, and I could tell he was feeling dizzy from the hunger in the bus. So the second someone got off their seat, I sat him down. I then tried to find a chocolate bar I had in my bag. While this is happening, I noticed an elderly woman and her adult daughter standing beside us. I didn't pay much attention until the daughter tapped me on the shoulder. She asked if my son could move so that her elderly mother could have a seat. I felt really bad, I really did, but my son was not doing great and standing would make it harder. I had found the chocolate and he was eating it slowly, but if he stood up right then, I can assure you he would have fainted. I apologized to her and explained that my son wasn't feeling well. She rolled her eyes at me and said that she saw him standing earlier and that he's a young, healthy teenage boy. He'll be fine. I apologized once again and told her that he wasn't feeling well and that if he was, then he himself would have offered her a seat. The daughter told me to look at her mother, and I admit the poor woman looked really tired, but I couldn't. My son had started to lean against me, so I told the woman one last time I was sorry and to ask someone else. I then heard both of them whispering and calling me an entitled witch. And when we got off the bus, a woman that got off with us said that a teenage boy can handle standing more than an elderly woman can, and that she hopes someone treats me like that when I'm her age. My son was so out of it, I don't think he even noticed or cared, but I can't get this off my mind. Am I the jerk? A totally unrelated woman thought I was along with the two. I wasn't sitting down and didn't have a seat. I think OP's not the jerk. I think they're just victims of circumstance. It just looks bad. They're going to wish you and your firstborn terrible lack of seat, pain, and misery for all of eternity for what you've done here today. But I don't think anybody, given the circumstances, can say that OP's the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for picking up my kids for scheduled custody time? I have 4 kids from prior relationships, and my wife has 1. She has full custody of our son, but I have 2 of my kids here full time, and weekends for the other 2. My wife gave birth on Wednesday and came home from the hospital on Thursday. The kids and I have been doing our best to keep the house as quiet and relaxing for her as possible. On Friday, she asked me not to pick my youngest kids up because she feels the house is already unbearable with 3 kids, and 5 is too much. I told her she knows that isn't possible. That's not how custody agreements work. Besides, how would that make my kids feel? She said she just gave birth, so her feelings are important. I said I'm not flaking on my kids, so we need to figure something else out. Friday, when it's time for me to pick up all the kids, my wife was napping. I didn't want to potentially wake her, so I told my oldest, he's 19, to hold the baby until I got back. When I got back with all the kids, my oldest and wife were screaming at each other. The best I can tell is that she woke up and went looking for me. My son told her where I went. She called me a thoughtless jerk. My son called her a hateful witch, and then they started screaming at each other. I got the kids to all go outside for a bit while I talked to my wife. She said I was an unbelievably selfish jerk that couldn't even give her a break for 1 weekend. She said none of this would have happened if I hadn't insisted on picking up my younger kids. She said she wanted my oldest to leave, but I said that wasn't an option. She locked herself in our room. I get that childbirth is harder than I'll ever know, and she's exhausted, but I don't feel like what she asked for is something I can give. Was I a jerk for insisting on getting my kids? I mean, OP is legally bound to via the custody agreement. It's not like this is gonna be a surprise, right? Like, this isn't something OP sprung on their wife. They've been doing this assuredly all this time leading up to this moment. Our next story is, am I the jerk for keeping a dog my daughter doesn't like? Growing up, I always wanted a dog, but our apartment complex didn't allow them. Then, thanks to finances and situations, it didn't quite pan out in adulthood either. Now that we have a bigger house and the kids are older, 14 and 8, wife and I have now decided now is the time. We got the kids a dog for Christmas. The only problem is my younger daughter doesn't like the dog at all. We thought she just needed time to adjust, but even now, she recoils if the dog comes near her. She doesn't pet him or even talk to him. She doesn't want to take part in caring for him as part of her chores. My older daughter's good with walking him because she runs after school anyway, but even she can't get her sister interested in helping being a dog parent. My younger daughter outright says she wishes the dog would go away. Wife and I had a discussion and decided this won't be an option. Her main complaint is that the dog is too loud and has chewed up her toys. I understand where she's coming from, but the dog is just a puppy, so obviously it won't be doing that forever. We don't want her to be unhappy, but the rest of the family likes the dog and we're sure she'll get used to it. Am I the jerk? Definitely not the jerk for keeping the dog, but you definitely are the jerk in my eyes if you keep forcing her to interact or try to take care of this dog, when from the get-go they showed no interest and they reap no benefit from the dog. Like, it would be one thing if they played with them or enjoyed being with them, but also did nothing to take care of them. But they've been utterly consistent in that they want nothing to do with the dog, so let them be and don't let the dog burden them in any way. Our next story is, am I the jerk for going nuclear and staying at a hotel? I'll try to keep it short. I suffer from migraines and type 1 diabetes. We were advised to not try and get pregnant due to my lack of control of my blood sugars. It happened and it sucks. Although I've been monitoring it so much better and been doing much better. 1, I ask my husband constantly to turn the sleeves of his tops the right way in. He wears 2 to 3 tops a day. If he goes to the gym, it's 3, 2 if he's going out, which 9 out of 10 does, and he doesn't. So I'm ironing 10 tops each week at minimum, and it just gets so annoying to constantly be turning in the sleeves. 2, I ask him once a week to unload the dishwasher and get rid of the rubbish. I do it the rest of the time. Rubbish wasn't emptied, and when I opened a cupboard, a few plates fell out and one fell on me, which hurts more than it sounds like. 3, I had a migraine. I asked him to keep the lights off and keep it quiet, and he insisted on A, playing loud music, and B, turning the lights on. I just lost it. I'm so uncomfortable, and it's like I feel like I asked the minimum. So I told him I wouldn't be having 2 children and asked him to leave. He wouldn't, so I texted my brother and they came and made him leave. He texted me, I since calmed down, and saying I'm the jerk because I overreacted, went nuclear, and can't do that when I have the baby. He's insisting I apologize. Am I the jerk? See, what OP's expressing here, if this is just the whole thing, is not a lot of them, and it's just a matter of being considerate to your significant other from the husband. I mean, the real way to deal with it is go head on, stop ironing the shirts, and like OP did, go to a hotel if they can't be considerate when you have a migraine and you're pregnant, or forcing him to. Our next story is, am I the jerk for wearing a romper and not a dress at a wedding? I, 16, gender fluid, was recently at a close relative's wedding with my family. Just guests, not as part of the bridal party or anything. The dress code, the bride told us, and that was on the invite, was that women wore dresses and men had to wear something similarly formal, for example, a suit. I'm a female at birth, so I was told that I would have to wear a dress. I don't identify as a woman, however, so I wasn't comfortable with this and asked for a potential compromise on my outfit. She insisted that I wore a dress. Cut to when my family were ordering their wedding clothes and figuring out their outfits. My parents asked if I'd found anything suitable, and I sent them a link to the romper that very much looks like a dress at first glance. It's genuinely not noticeable unless you look closely at the bottom part that's not a skirt. We got the romper. It arrives and everything's fine. I wore it to the wedding, and for the first part, everything seems okay, until I'm pulled along too hard by a kid and end up tripping and falling face first, sprawled out on the floor. As everyone nearby gathers around to see what happened, the bride notices that the bottom part of my outfit is shorts and not a skirt, and loses her crap and starts screaming at me that she made it clear I needed to wear a dress, and she said that I was being selfish by going against her wishes on her special day. I'm pretty sensitive and also hate loud noise as I'm autistic, so I start crying because the mix of pain from scraping my leg and her loud voice yelling is enough to overstimulate me pretty badly. My cousin leads me away to treat my wound. The bride stalks off, still fuming, and won't speak to us for the rest of the night until we eventually leave at the end of the wedding. I was reassured by some members of my family that I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm still super hung up over it and wondering if it was bad of me to wear that. OP actually posted a link to an image of the romper that they wore, and it literally is a dress. It just has like shorts underneath, or it has like an outer layer that literally just looks like a dress while the under layer is shorts. I think the bride was being needlessly restrictive and was weirdly hung up over this. The fact that it took a trip and a fall, and for them to rush up and see you while you're sprawled out to decide whether or not it was acceptable, I think it means it was plenty acceptable. Our next story is, am I the jerk for picking my stepdaughter up early from her mom's house? My husband has a 9-year-old daughter, Maya, from a previous relationship. We have her on weekdays, and she's with her mom on weekends. Maya has a weak immune system. She doesn't get sick too often, usually a few times a year, but when she does, it kicks her butt. Last weekend, she started running a fever. Her mom called us, told us that Maya was sick, and offered to keep her until she recovers, because she was recently laid off and doesn't start a new job for a few more weeks. Here's the thing with Maya's mom. She recently became interested in homeopathic remedies and Eastern medicine. We've gotten into arguments before about vaccinations and medicine for a chronic illness, but as far as my husband and I knew, she didn't have a problem with short-term over-the-counter meds like Tylenol or cold medicine, so we agreed to let Maya stay with her mom. Maya texted me a couple days ago saying she wanted to come home. I asked if everything was okay and she said yes, but she didn't want to be at her mom's house anymore and wanted me to pick her up. My husband was working late, so I went to pick her up. Her mom didn't want to let me in at first, but I eventually got to Maya. She looked horrible. Apparently her mom didn't know any natural cures for whatever Maya had, but thought letting it run its course without any medicine would be healthier than giving her medicine. I called my husband and he met us at the house and took her to urgent care. I'm taking some time off work to take care of her while she recovers. The problem is her mom is furious with us for picking her up early and keeping Maya home on her weekend, and for disregarding her input on Maya's health. Am I the jerk for picking her up early and keeping her here during her mom's weekend? She was sick. That's the end-all be-all. If you gotta take your kid to the urgent care, you can't be the jerk for ending whatever they were doing prior to that early. This next story is, am I the jerk for only referring to my daughter by her given name? My wife and I have 3 children. My parents brought up 5 kids and my dad would call us our names. Our nicknames and random names he thought we had. Boy, girl, son, daughter, or hey you. When we had our kids, I did the same. Until my oldest, my daughter, brought it up at a meeting with her counselor that it made her feel bad that I called her names like that, so I stopped. I talked to my sons and they were both fine with it. Sometimes when I call out boy, they yell back me boy or him boy. But since that meeting, I've never referred to my daughter by anything other than her name. Other than that, our relationship's not changed. I accepted that she did not want to be treated a certain way. Last summer, we had a family reunion. My parents were the guests of honor since it was also their 50th anniversary. We live across the country, so it was the first time that my wife and kids were around so much of my family at once. It was a great time, and all of my relatives were yelling for their kids constantly, and my daughter was the only one that was only being called by name. No one made a deal about it or anything. Last week, I was asked to meet with her counselor again. It turns out she's feeling excluded by my family because they don't call her girl or hey you. She's mad at me for having fun nicknames for her brothers, but only calling her by her name. I asked if she remembered why that started. She said that I embarrassed her in front of her friends by calling her girl, and that she'd asked that I call her by her name. So now I'm confused. She had no problem being called by her name for over a year. Now that she's seen that it's how my family is, which she knew before because we'd gathered together before in smaller groups, she wants to be called nicknames and stuff again, which is fine. So I asked if she wanted me to limit her nicknames to private family time. For example, when I take them to the movies, I'll call them by her name, boy number 1 and hey you, which was something she had brought up as rude before. She said I was cherry picking situations and that I should just know. I don't, since I cannot read her mind. She's 16, her brothers are 14 and 13. At the reunion, my dad and uncles all referred to me as Fat Boy. I'm 6'1" and 275 pounds. They're all short, jealous Hispanic beanpoles. I really sympathize with OP here because this is a definite hot and cold situation. She's saying, don't call me that, but also call me that because I want to feel included. There's a top comment reply to this post that's great, and I think it's almost fitting to a T that says, she's a teenager, and sometimes they'll argue with themselves via you as proxy. I think that's pretty spot on. I think it's a manifestation of her feeling wanting to be included, but also not wanting to be embarrassed, and just kind of dealing with that through OP. Our next story is, am I the jerk for backing out of a family vacation because parents are allowing stepsis to bring her boyfriend, but not mine? I don't think I'm wrong in backing out, but I've got people telling me otherwise. If anyone's curious, I'm 22 and my stepsister is 24. So we're going to Canada on vacation with my mom's side of the family. Mom, stepdad, 2 stepsisters. This post is about Annie, fake name, brother-in-law, and stepbrother. Parents want it to be a close family vacation, which I can get, so no friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, so on are invited. I would have liked my boyfriend to come, but I didn't mind until I heard my parents were changing the rules. Annie has a medical condition. She's a lot closer to her mom than my stepdad, her bio dad, and stepdad says he doesn't think he can spend the time with Annie if she needs assistance. They're allowing Annie to bring her boyfriend because apparently she feels the most comfortable around him and he can support her if needed. I think it's hypocritical of them to allow Annie to bring her boyfriend, but not mine. She would have her dad there, also us, which is supposed to be the point of the family vacation. I told them I also feel comfortable around my boyfriend, so if that's the reason, he should be allowed to come too. Stepdad said no, and my mom said she gets my point, but Annie isn't the same as us. I told them if they're going to change the rules like this, I don't want to go. Now mom is pissed at me and said I'm being selfish about our vacation. Am I the jerk? Apparently OP replied in the comments that Annie's been dating their boyfriend for 3 years, but honestly I wouldn't call him a boyfriend, more a caregiver. I think he's with her because he feels sorry for her. So I think irregardless of the medical condition and the reasoning behind that, I think OP showed their true colors plenty in just that comment. Am I the jerk for forcing my parents to sleep in separate rooms when they visit, even if my in-laws are allowed to sleep in one room? I, 29, got married last year to my husband, 28. Before that, we were dating for 3 years. When I was finished with high school, I went abroad to go to college, and after college decided to stay there. Met my husband, bought a house after we got married. Now, during that time that I was abroad, I would always visit my parents and they would never visit me. The only time they came here was for the wedding. Also the first time they met my husband, and I thought it was going great. After we settled from the wedding and everything, I took him to my hometown. The plan was we stay with our parents. When we arrived, my dad informed us that we need to sleep in separate rooms because, and I quote, "I don't want any funny business." And I argued. My husband eventually calmed me down and said it's okay. In the end, we shortened our visit from 10 to 5 days because it was frustrating for me that my marriage wasn't respected, or my relationship, and that I'm an adult. Our relationship since then has been awkward. This new year, they decided to visit us, and when they arrived, my husband, with prior discussion with me of his plan, informed them that they have separate rooms. My parents didn't take it well. My dad started to argue, but my husband said he doesn't want any funny business going on. My dad shut up. My mom told us we were being brats, and they both took their bags and left. We haven't had contact since. My sister called me and told me we were jerks for treating them like that. I don't think so. In my opinion, how much respect you give is how much you get, but maybe I'm wrong. Am I the jerk? I think while posting this, OP has to know that they're not the jerk. I mean, come on, this was just giving the parents a clear-cut example of why their behavior was ridiculous. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoyed deciding whether or not all of these people are jerks, then would it make me the jerk for asking if you hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving my son's wedding after he denied his stepmom a mother-son dance? My son Jordan is 27. His stepmom Natalie came into his life when he was 16. His mom had passed away when he was 13. Jordan never really considered Natalie as his mom. He refused to let her get close and shut down every attempt to have a close relationship. He even moved in with his aunt months after Natalie and I got married. As years went by, they started reconciling and seeing each other more often. He invited us to his wedding, which took place days ago. We got there and the atmosphere was great, until later when I found out that Jordan had denied Natalie a mother-son dance and instead chose his aunt to dance with him. Natalie told me this minutes later, and I couldn't help feel irritated and quite upset. I decided to get up and leave, and we both left. I got calls from my family after they saw me leave, and Jordan called later and I told him why I did it. He got mad and said it was his wedding and that his aunt is basically a mother to him, and said that Natalie shouldn't expect special treatment. I said it's not special treatment but a tradition. Besides that, he hurt her feelings for no reason other than for the sake of being malicious. He got offended and accused me of ruining his day and causing a scene. Now the family sided with him and said I shouldn't have left no matter what. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to turn my home office back into a bedroom for my daughter? 2 years ago, our daughter moved out to go live with her boyfriend. Just after she moved out, I started working for a different company that allowed working from home. So I turned my daughter's bedroom into a home office. Half of my job is talking to clients on Zoom, so I needed a quiet place in the house. A week ago, our daughter announced that she's moving back because her boyfriend got a job abroad and she doesn't want to go with him. Me and my wife both agreed that she can move back. We have a spare bedroom in our house that we used as a guest bedroom, but we haven't had any overnight guests in years. So we just decided that she could move in there. On Wednesday, she moved back in, and since then, she's been constantly nagging us to get our old bedroom back because it's bigger and it's on a separate floor, so there's more privacy. We told her that I need my office, but now she somehow managed to get my wife on her side, and they're both nagging me. I told them point blank that I'm not giving up my office, and now they're treating me like I'm the enemy, so am I the jerk? Listen, when you finally make that big move out of your parents' house, it should be expected that they're going to either enshrine your room exactly as you left it, or they're going to immediately flip it into a home office and/or gym, or both. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my wife she embarrassed me? My wife and I went out last night to celebrate her passing an exam she's been studying for. The place we went to had an open bar for a flat price, so we both had wristbands for unlimited drinks. My wife drank her first few drinks pretty quickly, stating that she wanted to get our money's worth. At one point, she had about 3 to 4 drinks in 15 minutes. When she asked for another, the bartender told her that her manager was watching. Then the bartender looked at me. I'll admit I did give a look, and the bartender refused to serve my wife more drinks at that time. When I was ready for my next drink, the bartender told us the special for open bar had ended. Pretty sure there was still an hour left. When we left, I told my wife she embarrassed us and acted as if she's never been anywhere with an open bar. She responded that it's my fault that the bartender wouldn't serve her anymore because I gave her a look. That I'm stuck up and I'm against her, and the night went downhill from there. I refused to argue with her when we got home, and this morning we haven't said much to each other. Am I the jerk? I don't know, I just can't really get behind the whole calling OP a jerk because they thought they had had enough. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my brother I'll help him and his children but not his wife? My brother and I were adopted into the same family. He's white and I'm a dark-skinned black woman. Our parents were an interracial couple, and our family had some unique challenges over the years, but our parents did their very best by us and tried their hardest to get us as much information as possible with our birth families. It was a little easier with mine because I was orphaned and I had 2 older living birth relatives who were just incapable of caring for me and needed care themselves. My brother had a very different story and he had no information at all. When he was 20, he met his wife. They married after 2 years of dating. She always gave me bad vibes. Around the time they got engaged, he told me that she kept bringing up his birth family and how he should find them before the wedding. I had told him that he didn't have to do anything, but he knew mom and dad would help him and he'd have my support. She went behind his back to find him via DNA and it was a crap show. But for some reason he forgave her and decided to meet the people, which she was thrilled about. It was around that time that she told me to get lost because he had sisters who were actually related to him and not, you can guess the slur, who always made his life more difficult. She told me I was crazy if I thought I'd be in her wedding photos. She also said our parents should get used to having only one child. My brother had already started to pull away by then, and because I was hurt and angry, I never told him what went down between his now wife and I. I chose to not attend his wedding, and I know from our parents that the day was very messy. 6 years of no contact happened, and then he reached out and apologized for letting anything come between us. We've been back on speaking terms for over a year now. It took a while, but we're doing so much better. I always loved my brother, but was hurt by the stuff that went down between us and me and his wife. A few days ago, my brother's family ended up in a shelter. He lost the job he had for many years and took a huge pay cut in the new one at the same time that his former landlord decided to illegally kick them out by changing the locks. My brother did contact a lawyer, but nothing is as fast as they show in TV and the movies, and they have no place to go. I live in the same city, which would allow him to keep what job he has now at least, so he asked if they could stay. I said I would help him and the kids and they could stay, but his wife is not welcome in my home. He told me that he would take that, which did surprise me some. His wife is pissed. She came after me about separating her children from her and how unhealthy it'll be for them to see her in a crap hole while they're safe and comfortable with me. She called me all kinds of names like petty and witchy and a jerk, but it was the comment about the kids that got me questioning, am I the jerk? Let's be real here, OP's brother's racist wife is probably more in a twist because their children are going to be around OP. They're probably beside themselves getting so worked up thinking about how OP's going to be a savior for them. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my friend's girlfriend to leave me alone after she said I was his side witch? Around 3 years ago, I, female 21, met a guy, Aaron, male 24, in a club. We danced and had a good time together. We exchanged numbers and we became great friends. We never dated or anything like that, just friends. We spent a lot of time together as he lives a few blocks from my house and we're also co-workers. We work in a music store. I started working there before and recommended him. We like to go to parties and clubs. We often go together with other friends. Almost never it's just the two of us. Well, 5 or 6 months ago, he started dating one of his classmates, Mia, female 20. I'm a very extrovert person, so I tried to be her friend when he introduced us, but I could already tell she doesn't like me. Still, I tried until I realized it was a lost cause. I still treat her nicely enough, just don't try to be her friend as she clearly doesn't want to. She's openly told me that she thinks something fishy is happening between Aaron and I. We both assured her that wasn't the case. She thinks it's weird that me and her are both similar looking. Not even that much, I guess she's saying this and we're both Asians, but our styles are totally different. I think that's the main issue with her, as she doesn't seem to dislike any of Aaron's female friends besides me. Anyway, yesterday we were at a party in a friend's house. I got there with a friend but asked Aaron if he could drive me home. He never drinks, so it's the safest way. Mia was there too. Around 3 a.m., Aaron asked me if I wanted to leave already. We worked on Friday, so we were kind of tired. I said okay, and then Mia started making a big drama because she didn't know any of this, and Aaron was supposed to leave with her and not his side witch, along with some other stuff. I was very annoyed at that point, so I told her something like, if I would have wanted to sleep with Aaron, I would have done it ages ago. She started crying because that confirmed her suspicions. It didn't, but she was drunk, so she might have understood wrong, and she asked someone to call an Uber for her. Aaron and her went outside to talk, and apparently had a fight as he went back inside, and asked me to wait for a bit until the Uber arrived. He was afraid that she'll leave with some drunk friend. We waited like half an hour and then left the party after Mia took her own drive home. I didn't want to ask Aaron about what happened, and to be honest, I was too drunk and tired to care. But this morning, I woke up feeling very much like a jerk. I know Mia gets very weird when she's drunk, and I also know that I probably made her feel more insecure. I don't want to be the reason my friend's relationship goes to heck. There's obviously just a ton of insecurity going on here. I don't know if there's anything OP can do. That's really just kind of between him and his girlfriend. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend to accept that I'm smarter than her? My, male 24, girlfriend, female 23, has had a recent annoying obsession with trying to outcompete me in all sorts of intellectual games. She brings me crosswords, puzzles, logic riddles, math problems, and gets frustrated when I outdo her 95% of the time. She even begs me to play chess and other intelligent games, but throws a tantrum every time she loses. I really don't know what's gotten into her. She literally used to tell me that she liked me because I was very smart, and that guys dumber than her repulsed her. But now she's suddenly upset about it? I told her after a chess game yesterday to stop testing me, and just accept that I'm smarter than her at these types of games. And she started crying and called me a condescending jerk. Am I the jerk? Nobody likes a sore loser, and clearly they're very insecure and lashing out. But let's be fair, I don't think there's anybody that's going to have a positive or even neutral reaction to being told, I'm smarter than you, in a relationship. This next story is, am I the jerk for asking to be paid for 6 months of constant dog sitting? My sister Alice owns a flat with her husband, and they have 2 dogs. Alice got a job abroad, so they're moving there. They don't know what to do with the 2 dogs yet, so their current plan is to move abroad and wait a few months, up to 6, to decide if they even like it there or if they want to come back home. If they like it there, they'll try to find a way to move the dogs there with them, but if it's not possible, they'll rehome them in our country. I'm 21 years old, still attending university, and I live with my mom. I really want to move out and live alone, but I can't afford it. Alice made me an offer. I can live in their flat for free for 6 months. No rent, no utilities, but I have to take care of their dogs. I'll have to walk them for hours every day, take them to the vet, etc. She said they'll pay for anything dog related and will pay for doggy daycare for a few days during my exam periods or if I want to go on vacation. I like her offer. Her flat is much closer to my university, but taking care of 2 dogs is a lot of work. I think it's reasonable to want to be paid for the work I do. If I didn't have to take care of the dogs, I could get a part-time job if I wanted to. So I feel like I should be reimbursed for that. Alice and our mom says that being allowed to live in her flat for free is already enough, and I'm being unreasonable and money hungry. When they told me this, I laughed at them and told my sister she could try to find another dog sitter then, and I know I'm her best option. Now they're mad at me. Am I the jerk? I love and adore dogs. I've had dogs all my life, but I finally reached a point in the last year or two where I don't have dogs. And let me tell you, the amount of responsibility that just vanishes by not having a dog around, surprisingly high. All that to say, I completely understand where OP's coming from in saying, taking care of 2 dogs while doing everything else? That is a lot of work, at least if you're doing it properly. This next story is, am I the jerk for deceiving my wife into joining me for my drive to work? I, 37-year-old male, and my wife, 31-year-old female, live in a suburban area. I commute to work in a nearby city every day, and she stays at home. We have no children. My commute is generally about 2 hours. I can shorten this by 10 to 20 minutes with some good timing and luck, but for the most part, it's a long commute. Now, what's often been a source of friction in my marriage is that 9 times out of 10, the moment I step in the door, my wife asks me to do something. She always has some miscellaneous chore that absolutely cannot wait. She wants me to take out the trash, make dinner, wash some dishes, or whatever else. I've told her time and time again that I need a bit of time to unwind from work, and then I'll happily do it. Last Thursday, after I asked her for time to relax, she said that I had 2 hours to relax after work. She insisted my commute home was plenty of time to listen to music and unwind. When I explained that driving in traffic was probably more nerve-wracking than work, she said I was just sitting on my butt. This Monday, I woke her up with me and said that I had a special surprise for her. She assumed I'd taken the day off work and we were going somewhere special. She got dressed and we got in my car. I got to the freeway, where I told her that we were going to spend the next 2 hours sitting in traffic together, seeing as she considers that leisure. She immediately got upset at me for lying to her. We argued for about 20 minutes until she stopped responding. Then she started watching Netflix on her phone. Then she asked me to drop her off somewhere so she could Uber home. I didn't. We got to my office building and she immediately jumped out of the car to find something to do. I went to work as usual, but after I finished, she was nowhere to be seen and not answering texts. Finally, I called her and she picked up the phone to tell me that she'd taken an Uber home in the afternoon, then hanging up on me. Since I did this, she hasn't said more than a word or two to me at a time. She seems to be really upset. But did I take this too far? Let me be clear, I think it is laughable to assume any kind of driving is unwinding time. Definitely not. But I think you guys also have to agree with me, this guy went way too far. Like, they probably should have stopped at the waking them up part and telling them they had something special, right? Wake them up and say, yeah, we're gonna go drive in traffic for 2 hours, isn't that exciting? I think that's enough there. Our next story is, am I the jerk for hiding my true personality by always wearing a wig at work? So I, female 21, recently started working at a corporate job and it's been around 3 months. I started dyeing my hair since last year, and I can change the color like every 2 months. However, I've always showed up in my workplace with a long black wig, and it doesn't look fake at all since I'm South Asian with natural black hair anyway. The issue arose when one of my colleagues whom I've become friendlier with added me on my Instagram. He saw pictures of me in my shorter violet-colored hair at a concert. When he saw me the next day in person at work, he was a bit confused as I had long black hair again. He made a joke like, "You didn't tell me you had a twin sister. Was that her on your Instagram story last night?" I replied, "No, that was me," and told him I'm wearing a wig right now and I always have at work. He asked me why that was necessary, and I just said, I don't know. I think I like to make a certain appearance at work and keep it separate. He said that's way too much work and started gossiping about it with a few other coworkers. They said I'm going way overboard to hide my true personality. Some of them started calling me Miss Uptight whenever they see me. I also dress in a more formal style than others, so that contributed to the name as well, I guess. I asked them to stop, and they only made it worse and more defensive. I guess I could just stop wearing the wig and show up normally, but the thing is, I really like the way I dress and look at work. Plus, I would be out of there in a few months anyway. I sort of regret adding him on my Instagram. Am I the jerk here? This next story is, am I the jerk for unintentionally embarrassing my sister-in-law? My mother really thinks I made a huge mistake and that I need to make it up to my brother and sister-in-law, but my wife and I disagree. I thought I'd ask you for your thoughts on this, and I already appreciate you taking the time to read this. For context, I, 34-year-old female, have only one sibling, my brother, 25-year-old male. He has a 10-month-old son with his wife, 23-year-old female, and this is their first kid. They are clearly overjoyed. My wife, 37-year-old female, and I have two 8- and 9-year-old daughters. My sister-in-law rightfully is very concerned with caring for their son. She tries to take all of the physical and mental health-related steps right with him. And as a mother, she can be overprotective at times, and I completely understand that since I was also in her shoes back in the day. The issue is, she and I were having a conversation together at my parents' house. Nephew was with my brother. Somewhere in the conversation, she mentioned how she was being very careful and was going to avoid giving her son any potentially allergenic food like peanuts or citrus fruit until he was a few years older. She said her pediatrician advised her to do that. I remember from back in the day that both my wife and our kids' pediatrician had recommended for us to introduce these food categories into their diet as soon as we could, because it reduced the chances of them developing allergies later on. I mentioned this to my sister-in-law. She laughed and loudly commented that her pediatrician sure knew a lot more than I did, and he was very experienced and that I had it wrong. Suddenly, everyone's attention was on us. Now, my wife is a doctor. She's a specialist, but she literally lives and breathes medicine. I asked her if giving peanuts and other potentially allergic food categories earlier was medically advised. She went on to explain the pilot studies, previous views, the mechanisms, etc. Mentioned how this idea my sister-in-law mentioned was no longer now considered standard, and even cited several recent articles that indicated indeed introducing them earlier was a much better idea and supported by evidence. My brother thanked her and said it was good that they found out soon enough. I thought that was the end of it. As we were leaving, however, my sister-in-law told me I'd been rude and embarrassed her in front of my wife. The next day, my mother also told me that I'd been very rude to my sister-in-law and undermined her and that I should make it up to her and my brother. Was I in the wrong here? When it's all about just trying to make sure your kid gets the absolute best care for their long-term health, and it's not like you're trying to command them or commandeer whatever it is they're doing, I think it's totally fair and reasonable to do what OP did. This next story is, am I the jerk for not taking in my son and his family? My ex-wife and I adopted our son when he was 6. We'd been his foster parents for 3 years, and we wanted to make it official. We met his wife when he was 18. She knew he was adopted, and she thought it would be good for him to get to know his biological parents. Over the course of the next few years, my ex-wife and I were slowly pushed out of his life. When they got married, we only received a wedding invitation. We weren't part of the wedding party. His biological parents and their spouses sat at the family table. We haven't had the opportunity to meet our granddaughter, and she's nearly 3 years old now. I'm sad about the situation, but my ex-wife is heartbroken. I hate to see her hurt when all she did was try and be a good mom. I can honestly say that I'm not a fan of my daughter-in-law, and I wish she had never come into our lives. Recently, they've run into financial problems and they've lost their home. My son's job is in the city we live in, and his biological parents and his in-laws all live in other cities. He called my ex-wife to ask if they could stay with us while they got back on their feet. I said no. My ex-wife wants to, but I refuse to be used. He's been distancing himself from us for 9 years now. The only reason he called was because he's desperate. I don't think I owe him anything. I offered to pay for whatever it costs for him to move his family to the cities where his real family is. His wife called me to scream at me. She says that I'm abandoning my son and grandchild. I said that since he didn't think of us as parents when they got married and had a child, then they shouldn't think of us that way now. Then I blocked her. My ex-wife says I'm being too harsh and that I need to forgive them. But here's the thing, I don't think it'll change anything. All that'll happen is that they live in our home and then they abandon my wife again as soon as the chance presents itself. To be fair, I agree with OP. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my best friend / sister-in-law the true reason for my divorce? I, 32-year-old female, met my sister-in-law Mary, 32-year-old female, in uni. We were assigned flatmates who really enjoyed cooking and baking together and became best friends. She actually introduced me to her brother John, 35-year-old male, whom I dated and eventually married 8 years ago. We have 2 kids, age 3 and 5. Mary was thrilled for us. She had a close relationship with John and remained best friends with me. John is very intelligent and a bit competitive in nature, so he naturally went into an intense career field. Unfortunately, he turned towards alcoholism to cope with an intense job. He started seeing a therapist to help him identify his triggers. He drank less, and then he quit therapy thinking he was fixed. He started drinking more again after a while. He did the find a therapist, control his drinking, quit therapy process 4 times over 5 years. Each time, he'd make promises and agreements. We had 2 kids along the way, the first before I realized how serious the drinking problem was, and the second after he agreed to quit completely and get fully sober. He went back on that promise and said he wanted to be in control of his drinking and only have 1 to 2 drinks a week. He never got completely sober. He would flake out on his promises to the kids and me. He'd go hang out with friends who encouraged him to drink and have 2 to 3 drinks and then start buying bottles of vodka and gin again. After the 3rd time he quit therapy, I gave him an ultimatum: get sober or I was leaving him and taking the kids. I followed through with it. Mary and I stayed best friends after college, but John asked me to keep his drinking from his sister the first time around and didn't want her to think he had a problem. He was my husband, so I agreed if he worked on staying sober. When I divorced him, it appeared out of the blue to Mary and their parents, who couldn't understand why I would up and leave her brother and adamantly take the kids, only letting him have visitation. Mary blamed me for the divorce and wanted to end our friendship. So I told her the truth, that I loved him and still do, but I wasn't willing to spend the rest of my life and ruin my kids' childhoods, setting ourselves up for disappointment over and over again when he wouldn't stay in therapy or stay sober. Mary was horrified after I told her about everything. She got very emotional when I admitted to her how many times I let myself get excited for plans her brother made with me or the kids, only to be flaked on when her brother poured himself a drink after work. She went to give John a piece of her mind and asked him to get his crap together. John's now extremely upset at me for spilling his secret that I'd promised to keep because Mary's image of him is now rubbish, and his parents are disappointed in him too. I think I had a right to explain myself to my best friend, and I no longer had a promise to keep after he broke his end of it. Am I the jerk? I think OP's not the jerk, and the main reason why is not because OP went and blabbed some drama needlessly out, but more so because Mary's image of John is only ruined because John's done plenty enough to make it that way. OP biting their tongue is just OP agreeing to be complacent and willingly looking like the bad guy for this seemingly reasonless divorce. Am I the jerk for refusing to forgive my dad for breaking our deal? When I, 17-year-old male, was 8, my parents bought me a piano and signed me up for lessons. I was super excited because I love music. Over time, I kind of became known as the piano guy at school. I play at school concerts, accompany the school jazz choir, and play once a week for the residents at a couple of retirement homes in our town. When I was 15, I started to talk about quitting lessons, and my parents quickly tried to guilt me out of it. I told them I wanted to try other things and that between piano and studying, I didn't have much time left for other extracurriculars. My dad proposed a deal. If I kept playing and taking lessons until I reached 10 RCM, Royal Conservatory of Music, and continued to keep my grades up at school, he would buy me a new car of my choice. I jumped at it and we shook hands on the deal. I should explain that my family is well off financially. I have a very privileged life, but I wouldn't say I've been spoiled. If I ever wanted a luxury item like a new phone or a game console, I have to buy it myself with money I've saved from summer and after school jobs. I should also explain that my dad is big on loopholes. When we compete, he always finds a way to win. And when I do, it doesn't count because of some loophole. It drives me nuts, but he thinks he's hilarious. Whenever I complain about him not playing fair, his answer is always the same. Life isn't fair. So because of our deal, I kept up with my lessons. I spent about an hour or two a day on the piano while keeping my grades up. Last summer, I took my level 9 RCM exams and passed, fulfilling my part of the deal. I told my dad I'd chosen the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid SUV. A couple of months ago, on my birthday, I came downstairs for breakfast, and my dad told me there was a surprise waiting for me in the garage. I ran out, and sitting in the middle of the floor was a 1 to 24th scale toy BMW X5. My dad burst out laughing and said, "A deal's a deal, so as promised, here's your brand new BMW." My heart absolutely broke. I asked if he was being serious, and he said I couldn't seriously have expected him to buy a 17-year-old a real brand new BMW, and that we could discuss getting me a reasonably priced used car. I said we had a deal and I fulfilled my end of it. He said he did too, since I never said that car had to be full-size and drivable. I said he wasn't being fair. His response? Life isn't fair. Ever since this happened, I've been distant with my dad. I honestly feel like he betrayed my trust and that he deliberately made a fool out of me. He keeps bringing up the idea of a used car, but I told him I'm not interested, which I admit is kind of petty. I have enough money saved that I can buy a cheap used car myself. And I just feel like if I accept one from him now, it's like saying that breaking his promise didn't matter and that he didn't do anything wrong. Am I the jerk? I know I would feel the exact same way as OP, and I think especially the reason you don't want to accept their offer of a used car is because that's basically like agreeing to settle whatever outstanding promise by way of this used cheapo car. If you accept that used car offer, it kind of feels like you give up being objectionable to what the father did to you. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling her to get over herself? I got a dog 2 years ago, Corgi, and she's very much so my sidekick. I've been with my fiance for 5 years. My fiance does like the dog, but she's currently pregnant and experiencing massive migraines and has been snapping at everything. So every morning when I get up, I find my fiance already awake and at the table relaxing. As soon as I get out of the bed, my dog goes nuts. It's like super energy where she's running sideways, barking up a storm, jumping from the bed to the floor 1,000,000 times, causing the apartment to shake because it's old as freak, etc. And I'll sit there and sing made-up songs to her and just mess around with her. It's pretty noisy and I can be loud. It's just my way of interacting with my pet. I also have ADHD, so I'm fully aware that I can be ridiculously loud, and sometimes I simply forget to tone it down. My fiance's complained about it a few times, and I'll absolutely try to tone it down for a while, but as messed up as it sounds, the second she stops complaining and it's out of sight, out of mind, I start doing it again. If I catch myself, I apologize immediately, but sometimes I don't even catch myself doing it. So she's been getting up earlier than normal because she says she needs peace and quiet from you and the dog, because she can't hear herself think when we get up. And then she starts getting migraines and being overall pissed off. But now she's complaining because I can sense her not in the bed anymore, probably after 20 minutes of her being gone, and her warmth no longer there, and then I'm wide awake and the dog senses it and So she's now getting pissed because she thinks I'm purposely not letting her have space and purposely annoying her with my behaviors. I'm not, truly, but it seems like it, I guess. I've tried just laying in bed for a while so she can relax, but I get stir crazy, and I also don't feel like I should have to stay in bed so she can be alone when I live here too. But she flipped this morning. I felt her sneaking out of bed this morning at 5 a.m. and tiptoe out of the room. I watched her sit at the table with her book. Well, the dog saw me awake and immediately goes ballistic, jumping on the bed, whining, barking, etc. She comes in and says, "Will you guys calm down so I can have some time to myself for once?" I just side-eyed her because I'm getting pissed at this point with her demands. She says, "Well?" I tell her to get over herself. Just because she's pregnant doesn't mean I have to change who I am or change how the household works or change my dynamic with my dog. She immediately left after telling me to go freak myself and won't answer my calls. She's been gone for 6 hours. Honestly, as fun as it is probably to wake up that way with your dog, you need to accept that it's not productive for the household as a whole if you care about this person and discourage the dog acting like that. Like, go take the dog for a walk if it has that much energy in the morning. Our next story is, am I the jerk for calling my brother and sister-in-law rude guests for removing the decorative pillows my wife put in the guests' room? My brother and sister-in-law moved in temporarily. They're staying in the guests' room. So far, we've been on the same page concerning all things except the decorative pillows. My wife loves adding decorative pillows on beds, and she did the same with the guest's bedroom. She did it to make the room look better, and also it's her preference. She came to me complaining about seeing the decorative pillow in the guest's room being put on the floor and not being put on bed during the day. I went to talk with my brother, and he explained that sister-in-law was tired of having to move the 7 pillows in total before using the bed. I explained how my wife finds this disrespectful, but he thought it was no big deal and that my wife was being a little too obsessed, especially since sister-in-law is pregnant and can't put the pillows back every time. We had a fight and I ended up calling him and sister-in-law rude guests because of it. He and sister-in-law got offended and there was tension in the house over it. My wife isn't speaking to them and they aren't speaking to me. Am I the jerk? Maybe my wife overreacted. Maybe I shouldn't have called them that, but it is what it is, so I don't think the wife should have been that worked up over it. I don't think it should have gone to the blows it had. I think if anything, saying, well, you could have put it somewhere else other than the floor, and, temporarily putting it somewhere else while they stay in the guest room, that should be fine. This next story is, am I the jerk for not allowing my daughter to go to her sister's wedding because of her emo outfit? I have 2 daughters, Ashley, 26-year-old female, and Alex, 15-year-old female. I'm gonna start by saying they don't get along that well, and it's due to the age difference. Recently though, they've been getting closer since Ashley let Alex help plan the wedding. It was really nice of her to include her in this. Well, the wedding was yesterday, and it was supposed to wear formal attire. So before this, we both got long dresses. Alex was supposed to wear the dress she got, which was sage green. Alex normally wears emo clothes at the moment, which is fine. Well, she came down in the green dress and put a large slit in it that goes up to her thigh. She also added a skull necklace, earrings, punk rock boots, and really dark makeup. I told her to take that jewelry off quickly and give me the dress so I could fit the slit or at least make it shorter. Alex got mad and said it was fine and was in the dress code. I told her no and that you'll stand out. She refused again, and I told her if she won't fix it, then she can stay home. She refused again, and she missed the wedding. Ashley understood why her sister wasn't there, but my husband was furious with me and called me a jerk. Alex is still not talking to me also. I got there really early before the wedding and brought the issue up in person. Ashley was still getting ready. That's when we had the conversation. She agreed it would be best. I also texted my daughter that if she changed the outfit, I could pick her up in time for the wedding. No response. I'm fine with her expressing herself. She picked out the dress and she told me what she was gonna do for her makeup. Then the day of the wedding, she did all of this. The slit was so high I could see her underwear if she walked fast. Not to mention the jewelry was huge. I just don't get why she would do that. It was inappropriate to dress like that for the event. There's a time and place. Not to mention my Ashley was fine with Alex missing the wedding. She didn't want her there looking like that either. Our next story is, am I the jerk for returning all of my daughter's packages that she ordered? My daughter, female, 31, is currently in the process of moving. She's been living in Brussels for the past 4 years and is now moving back to London as she was offered a better position. She can move into her new flat in mid-February, so she asked if she could stay with me, and of course I agreed. I missed her. Of course, I refused to accept any rent. She offered. It's been great, but one thing I've noticed is that my daughter has a habit of ordering online a lot. She runs out of toothpaste, she won't bother going to the shop, she'll just order it online with her other essentials like shampoo. Needs clothes or stuff for her new house? She'll order it. She even bought her father's birthday gift and wrapping paper online. She even has groceries delivered because she insisted she pays for them because she lives rent-free. She barely goes to shops, and because of people like her, our high streets are dying. It's unhealthy, and every time for a week now, whenever a package came, I returned it, which forced her to shop locally a few times. But now, because quite a few packages never arrived, she realized what's been happening and confronted me, and she's fuming. She accused me of treating her like a child and saying I had no right to return her stuff. I told her something had to be done, and I tried explaining my point, but she told me she's done, packaged her stuff, and went to stay at a hotel, wasting money. I asked her to move back, promising not to do it again, but she's stubborn and won't listen. She told me she'll stay at a hotel until she can move into her flat. I only wanted to help her, but she's being so unreasonable. My husband stays neutral, and I don't know. Was I the jerk here? Was I wrong for returning those packages? How in any way would it be helping her by returning all of her packages? That's what you, the parent of your kid, considers helping them? Making sure they don't get the stuff they ordered? You may not like it, but honestly, online delivery for just about anything is kind of the way things are going nowadays. And I know it's been 2 years and whatnot, but with the world situation still being how it is, it's nice to try to limit how much you have to be around crowds of other people. This next story is, am I the jerk for interrupting my neighbor's house auction because someone parked in my driveway? I go out this morning with my family to do shopping. I come home to find my quiet street packed. Cars, both sides, narrowing it to one way. I get to my house and someone had parked in my driveway. I keep going to next door. Fortunately, I was facing that way. Auction was in full swing. Agent going mental, scumbags in suits everywhere. I roll down the window and yell, "Whoever the inconsiderate jerk was that parked in my driveway better move the freaking car now." Silence. Some old person gets in this crappy little Yaris and moves it. I back into my driveway and into my garage. About 10 minutes later, there's a knock on my door. It's one of the real estate flunkies who proceeded to chew me out for ruining his auction and costing the neighbor money. I told him I didn't give a freak, and maybe they should have given us notice of the auction. We got nothing in the mailbox, and he can just piss off my property. My wife says I should have found a park and walked up and asked nicely. I told her nice doesn't work in this situation, so am I the jerk? Considering they had the audacity to go to your door and complain, there's no way that you walking up there being like, "Hi, could you get the person who parked in my driveway to pull out?" would ever work. What OP said to that real estate flunky, they would have said to OP if they tried to ask nicely. As far as I'm concerned, if I'm OP, they lost money? Good. Stay out of my driveway. Our next story is, am I the jerk for saying it's not my problem if my friend doesn't make enough waitressing? After my friend and I went to an escape room, she said she was hungry and I offered to cook. She accepted and we headed over to our house. There, she asked why I hadn't gone to a restaurant in a while. She works for a nice restaurant in town and we used to frequent because she got an employee discount. I told her I pretty much stopped going to restaurants completely. She asked me why, and I told her inflation and the expectation to tip 20% at least has made restaurant food ridiculously expensive. She got annoyed and told me I could afford it. I live in $1 million house. My husband and I make good money, but I don't see what that means I have to go to restaurants. I told her the main thing at restaurants I like to order, steak, is now $50 for a mediocre one. I can get top quality ribeye for $30 that I can cook in compound butter and fresh rosemary. She made a face and told me that people with money that don't have children should be helping prop up the industry and complaining about tipping when I'm doing well. I felt attacked and told her that I'm doing what everyone's advice is. If I can't tip enough, not to go out. I'm annoyed by how high tipping has gotten, and we don't even live in the US, we live in Canada. She told me the restaurants can't even hire enough waitresses now, so even with tips, most people don't make enough serving. I told her it's not my problem if they don't make enough. It's their boss's job to pay them, and when I do eat out, I tip what is expected. She got really mad, told me I should be more sympathetic to her since she can barely pay her bills waitressing, since less people are eating out and tipping, and refused to talk to me while we ate. If there's one thing I wouldn't stand for, it's you telling me what I should and shouldn't do with my money. I wouldn't sit there and let you shame me for not going out to restaurants more. And also, let's be real, a lot of places are really getting expensive. Our next story is, am I the jerk for ruining my friend's gender reveal? My 27-year-old female friend, 29-year-old female, is pregnant. She wanted to do a gender reveal, so at her 20-week ultrasound, she got the ultrasound technician to write the gender on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, and gave it to me. She wanted me to order those smoke cannons for her husband, and their kids to pop at a photograph session to reveal what their new baby is going to be. Personally, I don't see the point in them, but it made my friend happy, and I felt honored that she trusted me with such a secret. When she handed me the envelope, she made me swear that under no circumstances I would tell her what it is, no matter how much she begged or told anyone else. I agreed. Fast forward 2 weeks, I've had this envelope for 2 weeks now. I've ordered the cannons and the gender reveals in a few days. For the past 2 weeks, my friend has hounded me with texts, begging me to just tell her what it is, but then following up with, actually no, I don't want to know. And it's just been going back and forth like that. The texts were annoying, but I just ignored it and understood she was excited. But the past 3 days, she had begun hounding me at work. I work an office job and I'm in and out of meetings all day. After the first day of a call into my work, I asked her to please just chill out and stop calling me at work. I reminded her that she had made me promise not to tell and that she'd find out soon enough. Here's where I may be the jerk. I'd been having a crappy day at work with a particular client being a giant pain in the butt. I was stuck in a meeting with this client and the receptionist stuck her head in and said I had an urgent phone call. I thought it may have been my kid's school, so I excused myself and took the call. It was my friend again. I just snapped and told her if she wanted to know so badly, it's a boy, and then I hung up the phone. My husband thinks I'm in the right because there's only so much one person can take, but our mutual friends are calling me the jerk because I should have just kept my mouth shut. So, am I the jerk? I mean, when it goes to the point of harassment, do you really blame them? Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister her baby's name is freaking stupid? I, 21-year-old female, found out not too long ago that my sister B, 36-year-old female, is pregnant after a long struggle with infertility, and I'm pumped and can't wait to be an aunt. Last week was the gender reveal party where my B broke down crying after cutting the cake and seeing it was pink inside. Her and her husband are thrilled because they apparently wanted a girl. She said right then that the baby will be named Mary. For reference, B is a born-again Christian. She found Jesus during her 3rd time in rehab. She'll go on and on to anyone who will listen about how she had visions of the Virgin Mary by her bedside, telling her that she would get better, that the pain was temporary, and how she would do great things after recovering. That was 8 years ago. She met her husband not long after that in church, of course, and fell head over heels in love, saying that God made them for each other. Kind of rolled my eyes at that declaration. Mary's just so old and boring. B asked me what was wrong. I was honest and told her I thought the name was a little boring. At the least, she could do something like Miriam and make Mary a nickname. It's 2023. Kids will make fun of her for having an old lady name once she's older. I myself have an old lady name, think Edith or something, and it's a pain. Kids in grade school constantly called me Grandma Edith and the sort, saying I was destined to be an old hag who would live in the woods and have a crooked nose. I'm also worried for the baby. B isn't a reliable person. She's been sober for years and everyone still walks on eggshells around her. She used to run off to go on drug binges all the time. a few times leaving me home alone as a kid so she could meet up with one of her dealers while our parents were out. She brought it up a few days ago, mentioning how she was hurt I didn't like the name, and asked if I was being honest in my feelings. I told her I was. Mary is a freaking stupid name. She'll get bullied in school for it, or at the very least, if she goes to some kind of Christian school, it'll confuse the heck out of her because every other girl will be called Mary. She called me cruel and a jerk and accused me of hating her and not caring that she was finally in a good place in life, as if she hasn't been in a good place in life before and relapsed, leaving our parents in debt paying for therapy and rehab that don't work, and letting us clean up all her messes over and over again. Am I the jerk? I think OP really has a bigger problem with the religion side of things more so than the name. At least that's the kind of vibe I'm getting here. Also, although there are a lot of older people named Mary, I still think Mary's a rather common name. Miriam sounds way more old lady to me than Mary does. It's not like she's naming her kid Chosen One or something. Our next story is, am I the jerk for screaming at my dad when he lectured my brother about losing lots of money on crypto? My brother, 23-year-old male, was dumb and invested a lot of his savings in crypto. He bought at the peak, sold at the bottom, and lost a lot of money. He's been depressed and anxious about this and beating himself up over it. My dad, 48-year-old male, is ironically a financial advisor and found out today when my brother admitted it. He had told my brother and me not to invest in crypto when we joked about Dogecoin last year, and he told us millions of times to diversify. Well, my brother didn't listen to any of that, and my dad, when he found out, started being a total butthead to my brother, in my opinion, saying things like, "Tell me you're joking. You're joking, right? Why on earth would you do such a dumb thing? I told you millions of times last year not to buy crypto. You should only be buying diversified mutual index funds. You made these choices and now you're learning your expensive lesson." Things that are not helpful and not serving any purpose other than to fill my dad's ego and make my brother feel even worse. Like, seriously, why even say these things? I, 22-year-old female, told my dad to shut up since he's not adding anything to the conversation. By the way, my brother at this point was near tears. My dad got mad at me and maybe I went overboard. I was very upset for my brother. I screamed at my dad that this is exactly why my brother and I never confide in him about anything important and we go to our mom. They're divorced. Instead, since my mom actually has empathy. He yelled back that he does have empathy. I said if he did, then I wouldn't be so excited to remove him out of my life when I'm older and not financially dependent on him. Now we're not speaking. He didn't even apologize to my brother either. My brother left and is probably still depressed. I feel bad now for making my dad so upset, but also I feel like he acted so crappily to my brother for no reason. But now I feel guilty. I also live with him currently. Am I the jerk for screaming at him for what he said to my brother? Now, if he flared up and reacted way too, strongly, I think you have every right to call him out on it, but not in a way that you're escalating the situation further yourself. Just saying, he's already beaten up enough, he lost all of his money, just take it easy on him and try to steer him in the right direction. I know personally I just don't respond well when people try to tear into me or scold me, so I get why OP would want to lash out, but they're only escalating. Call them out while at the same time de-escalating. I will say though, it doesn't sound like the father was necessarily insulting anybody. Our next story is, am I the jerk for calling my sister cruel for her tattoo idea? Sister is 28, I'm 26-year-old male. My sister N has always had a strained relationship with our parents, especially my mom. I'm clearly not privy to the reasons because things are fine with me and my parents. When N went to college, she met her creative writing professor as a freshman, and they got close immediately. They would do a lot together and worked closely on a few different writing projects. N never specifically said this, but it was obvious to anyone who saw them interact that they had a substitute mother-daughter type relationship, which hurt my mom a lot to see. I always thought she'd grow out of it or that the professor would move on, but 10 years later they were still very close. About a month ago, the professor died unexpectedly and it devastated N. She was really depressed over the holidays, which of course was all in front of my mom. and was a difficult reminder that N loved the professor as a mother way more than she ever loved my mom as a mother. She still talks to my parents and stuff, and they don't fight or anything, but N is very distant and doesn't tell them anything about her life beyond the bare minimum. My mom tried to comfort N, but N was doing her distant thing and didn't want comfort. Something unfortunate that happened to N is that when she got the call that she died, she was brewing tea, and in the shock of the news, she spilled boiling water on her arm, which burned her kind of badly on her wrist. I think the burn was like on the borderline of 2nd and 3rd degree, and definitely still looked pretty rough during the holidays. N said it was especially hard because, in addition to the physical pain, every time she looks at it, she's reminded of the moment she found out the professor died, which I totally get. I was on FaceTime with N, and she said she talked to her tattoo artist friend, who said that the burn should be able to heal well enough to get a tattoo over it. N then excitedly told me about her idea, which is a type of flower that the professor gave her a bouquet of for her undergrad graduation. My mom was so embarrassed that day because she didn't get N flowers, but the professor did, and N was parading them around so happy, and it was a reminder of their connection. I guess N and the professor exchanged these flowers for every special occasion like birthdays, etc. So now she wants to get a decent-sized tattoo in a highly visible spot of something that will remind everyone of the professor. I told N that this seemed really cruel to my mom, who already feels cast aside and like she's in exile from N, and that's without the constant permanent reminder. N kind of scoffed and said, "I can't believe you think you have the right to tell me not to do this." Called me a jerk and hung up, and is still not talking to me, except for a very brief text saying congrats for a promotion I just got. My parents aren't commenting. My dad said I should have just kept quiet, even though he agrees, and my mom made no comment but seemed grateful I stood up for her. I feel like I was just being protective of my mom, but am I the jerk? Regardless of what you or your mom feels, obviously this professor was incredibly important to their sister, and I say screw anybody that tries to tell her that she can't get a tattoo that commemorates somebody that clearly meant so much to her, whether that makes your mom jealous or not. Our next story is, am I the jerk for pushing my girlfriend to get more exercise? I, 26-year-old female, am pretty in shape. I jog every day and eating healthy is pretty important to me. I also follow a low-carb diet for health reasons. Used to have horrible IBS and mood swings. My girlfriend L, 28-year-old female, also eats fairly healthy overall, but I do most of the cooking. Before we got together, Elle mostly just ordered takeout and didn't cook much. We got together and she's pretty happy overall with our eating habits because I'm a good cook. But she still buys processed junk food and less healthy items and keeps them around the house. I also bake a lot and Elle is always happy to try what I make. Last year I proposed to Elle and she said yes. We're now in the stages of wedding planning. Recently I noticed that Elle has gained some weight, and I'm a little worried about her health. Early on in our relationship, things were closed, COVID, and so we went on a lot of hikes, and we used to go for walks multiple mornings a week. This, plus the fact that I was cooking for us and she was eating less takeout and processed food, led to her losing about 15 pounds by accident. She wasn't overweight, but had gained some due to COVID, lost some, and after meeting me had lost the rest. I know living a sedentary life has its health consequences and really isn't good for you. I really love Elle and want her to be around for a long time. I feel like it's partially my fault that she's gaining weight, because we used to go for more hikes and walks together, but then I started jogging in place every morning while watching TV. Got too hot over the summer to walk and I wanted more exercise. So now instead of us going for a walk, I'm there jogging while Elle just sits and watches TV with me. I love Elle and find her very beautiful. I just worry about her health and her not getting enough exercise. Every now and then I suggest she jog in place with me, or I'll send her on an errand to the grocery store so she can at least get a little walk in. And she's happy to go get things but doesn't ever jog with me. Today, I tried to tell her that I was worried about her health and she got upset. I don't think I said anything bad. I told her how much I love her and want her to be around, but I'm worried she doesn't get enough exercise. She took it fairly well but was very quiet and seemed kind of sad. Later, I got an angry text from Mel's stepsister saying that I was fat-shaming and calling me a horrible person. Am I the jerk here? Like, does she have actual medical conditions or issues or like concerningly overweight? Or is this just she's not fit enough for OP to be happy? Am I the jerk for how I responded when my fiance's sister commented on my flat chest? To get this out of the way, I'm a flat-chested girl. I suffered from health issues and growth problems, so I'm small, but I'm proud of myself. My fiance and I went over to his parents' house for his niece's birthday. I wore a sweetheart-shaped dress, and my sister-in-law Mel, who always comments on my chest, saw the dress and went like, "This dress needs boobs, you ain't got any." I ignored her, but then at dinner, she asked if I was planning on getting a plastic surgery before the wedding so that I don't ruin the wedding dress. I found this offensive, especially when others were watching. I said nothing, but when we were sitting in the living room later, Mel suddenly started wiping her nose and trying to clear it. It's stuffed due to the cold, apparently. She has a large nose, so I smiled and asked, "Do you need help with that? I could get the plunger for you." She was stunned and the room got awkward after her husband was laughing. She was fuming and told my fiance that I stepped out of line and ruined her daughter's birthday with my words that humiliated her. My fiance said I shouldn't have caused a scene after his parents told us to leave. I explained how her comments made me feel, but he said she said it was out of concern, but my comment was out of hate. Does anybody else just agree that this is a red flag? The fiance saying that the sister-in-law's words were out of concern? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for politely telling my husband's boss's girlfriend to be a little bit more discreet at a party? My husband's boss at the small startup he works on was throwing a huge party for 2023, celebrating a big contract and funding round they landed, despite the recession, I suppose. He's clearly doing well because he couldn't wait to show off his newly landscaped yard with pool and jacuzzi, new Mercedes, and a clear trophy girlfriend. This trophy girlfriend literally had nothing to talk about, hardly played host, and just wandered off halfway through the party into their jacuzzi and basically stripped down to just her bottoms. This was like less than 50 feet away from a party full of people, including 4 kids around 4 to 7 years, including my 5-year-old daughter. I was appalled, waited to see if she would be out in a few minutes or something, but then decided to wander over and politely tell her, and I quote, "Hey, this is a lovely party, but there are some kids around. Would you mind putting something on or saving it for after the kids' bedtime?" She barely acknowledged me. I felt awkward and left. I guess 10 minutes later or so, she wandered off, talked to his boss, and then the boss came over to my husband and gives him an earful. Now, I'm the terrible person because the boss apparently told my husband that I was rather impolite with his girlfriend, and he hoped that I'd have a talk when we were invited over again in the future. Does anybody else think that OP's the jerk just for calling her a trophy girlfriend? Our next story is, am I the jerk for being racist to my son's girlfriend? I, 39-year-old male, have a son, 17-year-old male, who recently got a girlfriend. His girlfriend is black and a very nice, kind, and beautiful young lady. I've met her and invited her for dinner and family events plenty of times, and she's a joy to be around. But recently, my mother's been staying with us because she's recovering from a surgery she had, and she's going on 70 years old, so she can't do much on her own. Long story short, my mother is a classic racist and being a raging narcissist, and she's not one to hold back from her opinions. I showed her a photo of my son and his girlfriend, and she went on a 2-hour rant about bloodlines and kept saying they don't look right, and when I said she was coming to dinner, she said she doesn't want the girl near her because it'll disturb her. So last minute, I told her she couldn't come. My son's been trying to invite his girlfriend over every day since, but I said no multiple times due to his grandmother being here, and her saying that she doesn't want her near her. I just don't want any problems. But he argues that I'm being a complacent racist by even allowing her to be here, and even more so for not allowing her to come over to protect a racist. He says I should have told her to leave the moment my mother said all that stuff. But my mother is an elderly woman who can hardly make it on her own as it is. Definitely much harder after surgery. Though I don't agree with her, I can't just leave her to fend for herself. I literally don't know what to do. My wife says my son's right about me being complacent, but of course, she'd agree because her and my mother don't get along well. I know I'm not a darn racist, but now everyone's saying I'm aiding one by taking my mother's side. So, am I the jerk? By giving in to her demands, you are being complacent with it. It might be scary to sit down and talk to elderly mom and say, your racist views are not okay. But I mean, you either put your foot down and deal with this, or you be complacent with racism. Our next story is, am I the jerk for using a family parking even though I don't have kids? So I, female 27, went to do some grocery shopping today, and I'm still having a hard time processing what just happened. I'm child-free but disabled. I have a small mobility disability. I am able to walk, but I need a cane to support myself. I also have regular bad pain from too much walking. I do have a disability sign for my car. So when I went shopping today, all the disabled parkings were taken. As always, mostly by people without plates. Sigh, okay. I decided to use one of those family parking spots instead, because I just can't get out of or into the car a lot of times with regular spots, especially if people park way too close to the driver's door. I didn't feel entirely comfortable, but I thought a disabled person being in need for this spot should be understandable. I was wrong. When I came back to my car, a woman in her 40s bolted at me with her kid that was maybe like 6 years old, but not on a pram or anyhow, and shouted at me, "You don't look like you got children." I was very confused, but promptly figured she was upset about the parking spot. I apologized and tried to explain myself, but she kept cutting me off. Apparently, she had been to the store manager demanding my car to be towed because she saw me leaving my car without children, but the employee denied, which made her even more mad. She told me she's sick of people like me being entitled to her parking spot, so I'm here looking for honest feedback. Am I the jerk for using a spot for families because the disabled spots were all taken? Should I have waited for one to open up? I love that OP made sure to clarify that this 6-year-old was not in a pram. Those kinds of spots are meant for pregnant women or kids with babies in strollers. It's like the special seats on buses for the exact same thing. So this lady's a huge hypocrite saying, "Oh, you're taking my spot." And let's be real, the average person, if they see somebody get out of a family parking spot using a cane, you're probably going to be a little understanding, right? This next story is, am I the jerk for posting the reasons that I excluded some people from my child-free wedding? My sister got married last summer. She had a very elegant and beautiful wedding and reception planned. It was child-free. She sent a gracious note to everyone who sent their regrets and thanked them for understanding her desires for her wedding and respecting them enough to RSVP in the negative. She also invited them to a party later that summer at her home if they wanted to take pictures with her and her wedding party in their fancy clothes. I thought it was well handled and classy. Several people didn't understand the meaning of child-free and brought their kids anyways. One screamed through the ceremony, and the mom would not leave the chapel because she didn't want to cause a fuss. There were no extra places for them at the reception, so their parents had to share their food with them. The worst was the kid that wanted a cupcake off the table the wedding cake was on. He lost his balance, tipped the wedding cake onto the floor. My dad saved it, but there was a handprint on the lowest tier and a lot of cupcakes hit the floor. All in all, it was 4 families that brought uninvited children. My wedding invitations just went out over Christmas. We're getting married in May. I know this is a long time, but we have a lot of out-of-town, country, and even continent guests we hope will come. We didn't invite these families to our wedding. We have a Facebook group for the wedding for people to share pictures and memories that we might put in the wedding video. They found out about the group and posted to my personal page about being excluded and asking why we're not inviting them. I messaged them privately and asked them to take down their posts and explained that my wedding was smaller and I wasn't having as many guests as my sister. They went public again and witched about me excluding them for no good reason. So I posted the receipts. I posted a video my cousin sent me of the kid crying during the ceremony and the parents doing nothing. The video of the kid freaking out because he had to share trout for supper. The before and after pictures of the wedding cake table. and I also asked if they knew in advance that they were not supposed to bring their kids to the wedding. Then everyone started piling on to them. I guess there was a lot of stuff I missed, including one of them changing a kid on the table with the guest book because the closest bathroom did not have a baby station. Now they're all calling me a jerk for embarrassing them for having children and wanting to be part of family events. I said they could not understand why rules were in place and that this is why they weren't invited. My uncle posted about how embarrassed he was that his daughter was one of these entitled jerks and offered to pay my sister for the cake that got wrecked. He'd been unable to attend and hadn't heard about the cake. So, am I the jerk? Definitely not the jerk. Amazing keeping the receipts and just owning them right then and there. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my brother why I don't talk with our father? I, 32-year-old male, have not had a good relationship with my dad, the reason being the pressure he put me on. If I had anything less than a 90 out of 100, he would be disappointed at me and tell me I was a failure and I would never be anyone in life. I still remember he and my mom fighting. She always defended me, saying I was doing my best, but he would always scream that my best wasn't enough. When I was 12, I got 83 out of 100 in a math test and I freaked out. I remember coming home crying. Thankfully, my dad was at work and I begged my mom not to tell my dad. I guess seeing a 12-year-old boy freaking out for a grade that even the teacher thought was great was enough, and my mom divorced my dad. I believe that was the moment he understood he screwed up and tried to apologize. My mom always wanted me to have a good relationship with my dad, and I would stay with him 1 week in a month. At 16, he had my brother with my stepmom, and I had to see the same man who called me a failure be the best dad to my brother. At 18, I cut my dad and his family off, with the exception of my grandparents and my uncle. 1 year ago, my grandfather passed away, and at his funeral, I saw my dad and his family. My dad briefly looked at me and then turned his head down in shame. My uncle came up to me. He said he understood if I didn't want to talk to my dad, but asked if I would talk with my brother. I said yes, and I met with him outside. We had a great conversation. And in the last year, he's met my wife and children, and we have a good relationship. A few days ago, my brother asked why I don't talk to our dad. I told him what I wrote here and more. In the end, I told him that our dad wasn't good to me, but that didn't mean he should stop talking to him. Yesterday, my uncle called me and said my brother and my father fought because of what I shared with my brother. I don't really know what OP could be the jerk here for. They were just sharing the truth. Just being factual about why you don't have a relationship with somebody. It's not like OP was trying to instigate anything. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not vacating the public oval so a private school football team can practice? As a New Year's resolution, my friends and I agreed to do more fun cardio. Our area is pretty built up, so we go down to the local community oval and play 3v3 soccer. We swapped from Wednesday afternoons to Thursday last week, and this was the first time we ran into the issue. We're running about as normal until a dozen or so kids and a few adults pile out of the local private school bus. The oval's big, so we make sure we're only using a little corner. One of the coaches comes up to us and says, "I'll get you guys to finish up. We're just about to start our practice session." We ask if we can just use a corner, but he insists they need the whole oval. We're a bit confused, but clear out nonetheless. Maybe they can book the oval? Instead of going straight home, I duck to the shops for a drink. Walking back past, I'm annoyed to see them just doing ball drills and sprints and stuff that could easily be done in a quarter of the oval. I do some research and confirm there is no way to book the ovals. They're a shared community resource. Every day I drive past the private school, and they have 3 immaculately kept ovals privately fenced in. I keep thinking back to my public school that didn't even have an oval, and for sports festivals, we needed to walk over to the public fields, and we would share with whoever was there. Thursday comes around as I drive home. I make note of the 3 completely empty fields at the school, 2 National Rugby League and a cricket fields, before I join my friends at the oval. We get about 20 minutes into our game before the bus rocks up again. As last time, the coach wanders over and tells us to pack it up so they can start practice. I ask them, since they're just doing drills, if we can share and that we'll stay out of their way. "Sorry guys, no can do." I ask why they don't use one of the school's ovals. They say those are National Rugby League and cricket ovals. We're an AFL team. I point out this is a public oval for everyone. At this point, the coaches all come over and start asking why we're being so difficult and uncooperative. They start saying that we're jerks and getting in the way of kids enjoying sports. At this point, I put my foot down, saying we're going to stay, we were here first, and they're welcome to share with us. They get to practice, and there is more than enough space for us to coexist. But about 20 minutes later, a cop car parks up next to the oval and 2 cops walk over to us. They ask what we're doing, and we explain it's 3v3 soccer. They ask us to be mindful to share the oval before going over to talk with the coaches. As they're leaving, I ask them what it's all about, and they tell me they had a call from someone that we were disrupting the sports team. But as long as we aren't getting in their way, they can't see anything wrong. So we're pretty sure they called the cops on us because we wouldn't leave. I think it's complete crap that a private school can come in and just annex public facilities, but the coach's looks made me feel like I was being a jerk. I just pray and hope that OP and their friends don't stop going here. Keep it up and regularize sharing that field because it is a public facility. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not eating the birthday cake my mother-in-law got me? My 24-year-old female birthday was this past weekend, and I'm still getting crap from some family over this and want to get some outside opinions. Mother-in-law doesn't have the greatest relationship, but we tolerate each other. My husband and I don't have a very conventional marriage as he works from home, and I took over my family's business a few years ago and work full-time there 8 to 5. Due to this, he takes over most of the household chores, such as cooking, cleaning, etc., since he's home more. My mother-in-law is very old school and doesn't think this is right. Due to this, she's become very cold to me over the past few years. So my birthday was this past weekend, and on Sunday, my husband planned a family dinner to celebrate at our house. My mom and grandma insisted on bringing/cooking all of my favorite foods for the dinner. My mother-in-law caught wind of this and I guess wanted to pitch in and help too, so she offered to get the birthday cake. She asked my husband what kind I like, and he told her anything chocolate or tiramisu. He also told her that I hate fruity cakes, lemon, raspberry, etc. Evening of my birthday rolls around and everything's going smoothly until it's time for cake. My mother-in-law and my mom both went into the kitchen. Mother-in-law was unboxing the cake and my mom was grabbing plates and utensils. Apparently my mom took a glance at the cake and asked if the cake was for me. My mother-in-law was like, yes, obviously. My mom was like, oh no, I guess no one informed you that my name doesn't like fruity cakes. Her favorites are anything chocolate and tiramisu. My mother-in-law was like, no, they informed me of her preference. I just saw this cake at the store and thought it looked lovely. Plus, it would be nice for OP to try something different. My mom left the kitchen because she didn't want to make a scene on my birthday. Mother-in-law brought the cake out, and my husband immediately confronted her when he saw it and was like, Mom, is this cake for OP? She was like, yes, I thought it would be nice for us to try something different. Anyway, I'm an adult and it's just a cake. I wasn't about to make some huge scene about a cake. So the cake was cut and mother-in-law offered me a slice, and I just politely declined and ate some of the other desserts at the table. Fruit, chocolate-covered strawberries, etc. She immediately got offended and said she finds it extremely insulting that I'm not eating any of the cake that she specifically bought for me on my birthday. I just simply told her, well, I appreciate you getting the cake, but my husband and I made it clear that I don't like fruity cakes and you knew this. She said I was being extremely disrespectful and selfish and stormed out with my father-in-law. She's been contacting both my husband and I, saying how I need to apologize for my behavior. We've also been getting crap from my sister-in-laws, and I feel kind of bad now for not just eating the cake. Am I the jerk? They knew what they were doing. Don't let them shame you and make you feel bad on your birthday because they got something you expressed you didn't like. This next story is, am I the jerk for not buying all new underwear for work? I, 22-year-old male, am a lead teacher in a 3K classroom, 3-year-olds. I have 2 assistant teachers in the classroom, both middle-aged women. I do a lot of running around and activities with the children, so the center has literally told me to wear athletic clothing to work. I'm fine with that. I typically wear a t-shirt and either athletic shorts or joggers. Now, I'm a tall guy, think 6'6", so obviously I have to bend down a lot if I'm working with 3-year-olds. Apparently, sometimes when I bend down, the top of my underwear shows over my shorts, and one of my assistant teachers insists on commenting every time. She'll say stuff like, "I see London, I see France," and even comment on the colors. She'll make comments on it not being professional. I want to clarify that my boss has come in to watch me teach many times and has not made any comments. Yesterday, my boss pulls me over and says the assistant teacher has made some complaints about my attire. She suggested I wear more muted underwear to work if it's going to be visible. Not only was it incredibly embarrassing to have to hear my boss talk about my underwear, but doing so would require me to literally go out and buy all new underwear. All my current underwear are pretty bright colors except for one pair of white briefs, and I'm not even sure it still fits me, to be honest. I want to be clear that the issue is not that my underwear shows maybe once or twice a day. She even admitted that that's a natural part of being bent over so much, but the fact that it's apparently attention grabbing. This is incredibly embarrassing, and I want to know if I'm the jerk if I simply ignore it, as all my other feedback has been good, and I can't imagine them firing me over this. This is honestly hilarious. It might be nice to invest a little bit more in athletic shorts that have really good drawstrings you can tie tight so you don't have underwear exposed. But regardless, this request is ridiculous and, frankly, I think kind of inappropriate. It's more or less trying to dictate what kind of underwear a coworker is wearing. That's just weird. Our next story is, am I the jerk? Husband leaves me alone after surgery. I, female 33, had same-day surgery. I wasn't allowed to drive myself to and from the hospital and was to have someone with me for 24 hours following surgery. I asked my husband, male 33, to take me there and to take care of me. He agreed, which was a big reason I went ahead with it. My husband runs a busy company and it's difficult for him to step away. Bit of background, we have 4 children together, under 6 in our blended family, and childcare duties fall mainly to me. I also work full-time. I just recently gave birth to our son. My husband begrudgingly takes me to the hospital. Once I'm settled, I said it was fine for him to leave as long as he was back when I woke up from surgery. I called him an hour or so later to let him know I was going back, and they would call him when I was going into recovery before they brought me back to the room. I get out of recovery and was obviously very loopy from anesthesia. My husband wasn't there, but the nanny was. I had to stay longer than I expected because I had some small complications afterwards. My husband finally got there as I was getting dressed and being put in the wheelchair to leave. He was annoyed with me for calling and texting asking where he was. He takes me home in silence. When we get back, I finally eat some chicken soup and the nanny suggests she takes the kids so I can nap for a few hours. I agree and ask my husband not to go far. I woke up shortly after they leave with vomiting and needed my medicine, which is in my husband's vehicle, and he's not here. I call him and it goes straight to voicemail repeatedly. I finally get a hold of him and he's working in the next county over, explaining that he's going to finish up and head home. It's a 30-minute drive, and then he continues to work for a while. When he gets home, I'm crying and he's very upset with me. We argue and then the nanny brings home the baby about 5 minutes after he gets there. He explained that he rearranged his whole day because of my surgery and I'm very ungrateful. I explained that I'm not even supposed to be alone and he left to go to a county over and took my medicine with him. I stay up most of the night caring for the baby alone and he left early this morning, saying not to call him if I need anything because I don't appreciate it anyways. Am I the jerk for being upset? Does anybody else agree this guy just kinda sounds awful? Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my friend she has absolutely no room to talk after she said I was eating myself to death? A little backstory so it'll help you understand my situation better. I, 15-year-old female, have IBS, and because of this, I'm slightly underweight. For instance, I'm 5'2" and 100 pounds. Anyway, my friend, let's call Amy, has some weird obsession with my condition. Like, she'll make weird comments about how I'm too skinny and how I need to eat better if I ever want to gain weight and basically get healthy. It really annoys me sometimes because she's literally overweight herself and has absolutely no room to talk. So I normally just ignore whatever BS comes out of her mouth for my sanity. So fast forward to around lunch. My friend group and I went to McDonald's because our school food is absolute crap. Anyways, I go to order and Amy decides to ask me if I'm really gonna eat that with my condition in the absolute snarkiest tone. That's when I lose it and ask her, where do you have any room to say that while you've just ordered 2 double quarter pounders, a 20-piece, and a McFlurry? She literally goes absolutely feral after I said that and told me that I was eating myself to death, and she just wants to help, and how I had no right food shaming her. That's when I say she was literally food shaming me because I have a medical condition that's none of her freaking business and she had no right commenting on. We argued for a while after that, and she eventually left the McDonald's. That's when half of my friend group left with her and told me I went too far, and she was generally trying to help, while the other half was on my side saying how Amy was definitely in the wrong and how she had no right to chime in like she did. I honestly feel kind of bad, but I don't at the same time. So I came to Reddit to get y'all's opinions. So am I the jerk? This next story is, am I the jerk for not taking my daughters when my ex gave birth? My ex-wife Emma and my wife Laura were pregnant around the same time. Laura was about 10 weeks ahead of Emma. In November, Laura gave birth to our son a few days after his due date. 3 days after he and Laura came home, I received a panicked call from my sister-in-law asking if I could take my daughters, 9-year-old female twins, as Emma had been taken to hospital the night before and was being taken for a C-section. Sister-in-law and my brother had taken the girls in overnight but weren't able to take them for long due to lack of space, as they have 4 children themselves. Sister-in-law said that Emma was looking at a minimum of 5 days in the hospital, and then the baby would need to stay in the hospital for a while. The baby came home just before Christmas. I told my sister-in-law that we couldn't take the girls because we just had our son and we were wanting to spend the time just bonding as a family of 3. Sister-in-law angrily told me that having my new son didn't cancel out the fact that I already had 2 daughters. I apologized and told her that I couldn't take them in right now, but I would send her some money to help out while they have the girls. If we hadn't just brought him home, I would have taken the girls in. But Laura and I had already decided that we didn't want any guests for the first few weeks, and I had told Emma this. While Emma was in the hospital, the girls stayed with sister-in-law and my brother another night before they went to stay with Emma's husband's parents. While the baby was in the hospital, because Emma and her husband were spending most of their time at the hospital, they were cared for a lot by Emma's in-laws, or my sister-in-law and brother. After a week or so, Laura and I offered to take the girls, but they told us they didn't want to stay because we were more focused on our son. It did feel like they were just parroting what they'd heard from the adults around them, though admittedly with the sleepless nights I did forget some things such as the video call with the girls. After the baby came home and everything was settled down with Emma, she sent me a long email in the middle of the night explaining that she was disappointed in my actions and thought that I would see that this is a medical emergency and I wouldn't need to be asked to take them in. I told her that we had just had our son and I had to think about his needs as well, especially when there was plenty of people around them to care for them. Emma's told me that any communication is now to go through the lawyer because she's fed up of dealing with me and is going to take me to court to get full custody instead of 50-50. I didn't think it was unreasonable to not take them in, given we had just had a baby. Laura wants me to fix it as we can't afford my child maintenance more than doubling if Emma gets full custody. Am I the jerk for not taking my daughters in? So, let me get this straight. You mean to tell me that they were having an emergency C-section and they needed you and your current wife to watch your twin daughters who are 9 years old, and you said you can't because you want to be focusing on your family of 3? You do all of that and somehow stand there trying to say that you're not the jerk? I mean, is this not clear cut? Am I the jerk for convincing my grandparents to waste their money? I'm 27-year-old female. My grandparents are Mary, 70-year-old female, and John, 72-year-old male. They're technically not my grandparents. I met them when I was 10 and they lived next door. My mom was single and was working multiple jobs 7 days a week, so we kept each other company and developed a grandparent-granddaughter relationship. They have 2 kids and 4 grandkids. I'm not sure how old they are, but likely in their 50s. When I was younger, I would joke and say, "When you die in 100 years, please leave me your teapot sets." She would laugh and say she'll put it in the will. I moved away as a teen, but we still talk every day. I went to visit last year and she had everyone over for dinner. When she brought out dessert, she brought out the teapot. I said, "Don't forget to leave me that in your will." She said, "Oh, don't worry, you're getting everything." I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. I'm the sole heiress in her will. Her kids were pissed. They came up to me when I was getting in my car and told me they knew what I was doing and I should be ashamed. I told them they're the ones that should feel shame. They live their lives as if they don't have parents. They all go to church together and they have a family dinner every week without inviting them. They go on yearly family vacations without them. Mary calls me crying because nobody visits, unless they need favors, or brings them along. They rolled their eyes and told me I was out of line and that it was a family business and I wasn't family. I told them to get screwed and left. Now, the inheritance is a lot. It could pay off my car, student loans, and even a house. But it's money they've been saving for over 50 years. They've received multiple inheritances and saved it all. The money would certainly help me, but I think it's unfair to be left all the money. So for months, I've been trying to get them to use the money instead, to go travel like they always wanted. Mary's always wanted to go to Spain and John's always wanted to go to Argentina, so after months of convincing them, they agreed. I set them up with a friend who's a travel agent, and they're planning a 2-year-long vacation. They'll return home after 1 year in Europe to make sure John's still in remission, and then plan to go on another year to South America once the tests come back clean. They're super excited, but their kids are not. They added me on social media and called me on there to tell me that what I was doing is wrong, that I have no business convincing them to waste their money. I said they were ungrateful jerks who couldn't appreciate their parents that raised them and worked hard for them. They said the only jerk here is me because I'm making sure they spend their money, because I knew if they left it to me, they would fight me in court and win because they were promised the money years ago. I hung up. They didn't contact me again, but I've heard they're still upset. Now I'm feeling weird about it. Is it their right? Especially if they were promised it? Am I the jerk? I'm of the opinion that as long as somebody is fully coherent, they have every right to decide what happens with their belongings and financials after they're gone. If they want to leave all of it to OP, I think that's their right. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for not inviting fiance's grandmother to our wedding? I, 27-year-old female, recently got engaged to my boyfriend of 5 years, Calvin, 29-year-old male. We had a party at a restaurant with his family to celebrate. Towards the end of the meal, his grandmother stood up to make a speech. She was so happy we found each other and can't wait to see her oldest grandchild get married. You know, the typical sweet sappy stuff. That was until she got to the end. She wrapped up her speech by saying, "I think I speak for everyone when I say we're all so happy you finally got over your gay phase." Calvin is bisexual and has dated men in the past. We all just sat there in shock. He didn't say anything, but I could tell Calvin was upset. I didn't say anything at the restaurant because I didn't want to make a scene in public, but when we got back to his parents' house, I freaking lost it. I started screaming at his grandmother, "What the heck is wrong with you? How can you say such hurtful and bigoted things towards your grandson?" She just smiled at me. I just said what everyone was thinking. I demanded she apologize. When she refused, I told her she would not be getting an invitation to our wedding until she does. This caused an even bigger argument, but at this point I'd had enough and Calvin was on the verge of tears, so we left. He didn't say anything to me for the rest of the night. Later, I found him sobbing in the kitchen, but he still refused to talk to me. The next morning, I woke up to hundreds of texts and phone calls from different people. Calvin's dad, sisters, and cousins are on our side, but his mom, aunts, and uncles are not. I got a particularly nasty phone call from his mom, calling me a selfish witch for taking away her 80-year-old mother's opportunity to see her only grandson get married. I told her, well, if she wants to come, there's one very simple thing she has to do, then hung up. I sat down with Calvin today and had a serious conversation with him about everything that happened. He apologized for giving me the cold shoulder, but he was very overwhelmed with everything that his family said, which is understandable. He also told me he's very grateful that I stood up for him, but after everything that happened, he would rather his grandmother not come to our wedding at all. I told him I'll always love him and support him in the decisions he's made, but can't help but feel like if I had handled things better, I wouldn't have started a fight within his family. I feel so guilty about it, so Reddit, am I the jerk? This next story is, am I the jerk for taking up space at a restaurant? I, 27-year-old male, often go out to eat alone. It's never an issue for me since I'm usually sat at bars or a table for two. Recently, I wanted to go to a new place that had opened in the area. I went alone, but the hostess led me to a table for four. I asked if they had smaller tables or a bar to sit at since I didn't want to take up a spot for larger groups. She said this was their smallest table and they don't do bar seating. The restaurant wasn't super busy, but definitely was picking up as it was dinner time. While I was waiting on my food, the attendance picked up big time and there were people sitting outside waiting. I noticed at the host stand, an older woman, man, two younger adults, and a kid were crowded around, and the woman pointed directly at me. I tried to ignore it since my food was about to come out. While I was eating, the group from earlier were sat in a booth not far from me. The lady who pointed at me made a loud comment about how selfish young people can be, how some people are so entitled they take things from others without a care. Then I felt something hit my neck. It was a wadded up straw wrapper. I turned to look at where it came from and noticed everyone at that table was glaring at me, except the kid who was oblivious. I wouldn't say I have social anxiety, but I am non-confrontational, so I went back to my food. Then the unthinkable happened. The lady came over and asked for one of the chairs at my table, saying they squeezed 5 into a booth and just wanted a chair for the kid. Before I could get an answer out since I was chewing, a server walked by and said, "Oh no ma'am, we can't have the chairs moved around. Safety with the walkways." She says, "Well, why does one person need 3 extra chairs? I have a kid suffering and his parents are horribly uncomfortable because you sat one guy at a table when you could have just given his food to go." The server told her she needed to sit back down, but she kept ranting. "Oh, I'd love to sit comfortably at a table too big for me. It must be so nice knowing I'm ruining another family's dinner." At this point, the hostess interjected and the server left. The hostess tried to shoo her back to the table, but the lady kept demanding an extra chair. "Ma'am, you told us to sit you in the first table that was open. The manager and I told you it would be a squeeze, and you still wanted it. Either you take this table, or you can leave." The lady finally grumbled her way back to sitting, and I finished my meal, paid, and got the heck out. She was definitely unhinged, but I'm stuck wondering if I'm the jerk here for taking up a space meant for more people. It's not OP's fault, they didn't ask to be sat anywhere in particular. Also, the whiners were a group of 5. OP was sitting at a table for 4. They still would have had to squeeze around. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not allowing my roommate to use my eggs? Last week, I went to make pancakes in my kitchen, and almost all of my eggs had been used by my roommate. Eggs have doubled in price in the last year. When they got back from grocery shopping, I asked them if they got stuff to make breakfast for themselves because I need my eggs. Fast forward to a week later, I noticed that there was a box of pancake mix left on the counter. This indicated to me that they were going to make pancakes in the morning, which needs eggs. They still hadn't bought their own, so I went ahead and boiled 10 eggs for my lunch next week and labeled the eggs container with my name because I need the remaining eggs for banana bread. Next morning, I wake up to my roommate yelling at my other roommate, his girlfriend, that he had to go to the store to buy eggs because they obviously saw my name. Am I the jerk for making them buy their own groceries? If the groceries aren't like a group thing, then I don't see how you could be the jerk for not wanting somebody to use your groceries. This next story is, am I the jerk for calling my sister out because she lied that my son broke a vase when he was staying with her and her girlfriend? I, 35-year-old male, am a single father. My son is 8, Last week I had to travel for work, and I was going to be busy a lot through the whole trip. I simply didn't want to drag my 8-year-old son with me through the country. I initially wanted to ask my mother to watch my son, as she usually does, but she was out of town herself, and I only have my sister, 24-year-old female, in the city that I live in. So I left my son with my sister and her girlfriend, 30-year-old female. I would occasionally call and check on my son through the trip, and I told him several times that he should listen to his aunt. He's a very well-behaved young man and an absolute sweetheart. When I came back, I went over to my sister and her girlfriend's place to thank them. My sister told me that while running around in the house, my son had broken a vase. That is quite unlike my son. He's never been naughty or ran in the house before, even when he was a toddler. For the record, before my sister moved in with her girlfriend, she lived in a normal house. Her girlfriend's house is nothing short of a museum, with many expensive decorative fragile objects, and has several collections. My sister told me my son had run around the house and into the table that contained the vase, and then it had fallen down and shattered into pieces. According to my sister, he was getting ready for camping out in the garden with the two of them, which is his favorite activity. I told my sister my son was a very well-behaved boy and he would never run inside the house, let alone break something. I asked her what he had broken, and it turned out to be an antique from Africa that cost about $900. Her girlfriend told me I shouldn't worry about replacing it. The cost is not at all considerable for her. She's quite comfortable, but would be hard for me to pay. But maybe I should have a conversation with my son, because they had explicitly asked him not to run around. I asked my son if he had broken the vase when I got home, and he told me he had nothing to do with the vase being broken. And he said my sister was the one who broke it, when she had a pretty bad fight with her girlfriend. He said they were fighting together and that the vase broke in the heat of the argument. So I called my sister, told her what my son had told me, and called her out on using my son to get away with her bad behavior. What they did was absolutely distasteful. She told me I wasn't being logical at all and that I needed to accept that my son was a kid and had simply made a mistake while he was running to the garden instead of accusing her. I said maybe she shouldn't have lied then. She doesn't answer my texts now. Am I the jerk in this? My son is being accused of something he wouldn't do at all, so I felt the need to defend him. I guess the problem here is there's no burden of proof. You say it doesn't sound like your kid staunchly denies it and has a very plausible explanation for it. I wouldn't blame anybody for standing by their kid here. Our next story is, am I the jerk for cutting down a dead branch from a neighbor's tree that were hanging over my driveway? My neighbors have a large oak tree that's about a foot from where my driveway ends, width-wise. There's a 15-foot branch that hangs over my driveway that's visibly dead. It's dry and has no foliage. It's right under where I park my car, so I've been concerned about it falling on the cars during a storm. It's perfectly legal in my area to cut down any branches hanging on your property. My neighbors don't live here full-time, and I don't have their contact information, so I didn't notify them beforehand that I was cutting it down. In hindsight, I probably should have told them, but it had to be done before the spring, and they don't come back until June. The tree guys came and cut it down, and 20 minutes after they left, I got a knock on my door from a police officer. They said they got a call that we were cutting down a tree on someone else's property. The neighbor has security cameras and called the police. I explained that it was just a dead branch that was hanging on our property and at risk of falling on my cars. They called the neighbor back and told her I was perfectly in my rights to cut it down, and she screamed at me that I'm a disgusting runt and said she'll be calling her lawyers and taking me to court for destroying her property. The cop said I did nothing legally wrong and she can't do anything about it but be mad, so not to worry about it. The main annoying thing here is you gotta deal with a neighbor who clearly has it out for you now. At least they're not physically around much, I guess. Our next story is, am I the jerk for how I've seated my family at my upcoming wedding? I, male 30, am soon to marry my female 27 fiancée later on this year. We've been together for 6 years. All good stuff, no issues. It's all good there. My conundrum comes from my family side. I grew up in a small family, just me, my mom, and an older sister for the majority of my life, as my dad wasn't around. My mom got remarried when I was about 19, and I'm close with my new step-siblings. I've never been close, and I've actually haven't spoken to my mom or sister, with a couple of exceptions, in the last 5 years after a big bust-up that's been brewing for years. I have, however, always been very close with my grandparents, and I'm still in contact with my wider family. I've never badmouthed my mom. I've not even really gone into detail as to why I don't want contact with her, as I'm concerned it'll cause a wider issue with the family as she would come out in a bad light. Now to the issue, my family and friends know I'm not close with mom or sister, and the question was always whether or not I'd invite them. This wasn't a difficult decision, surprisingly, as I've always maintained that I would not make a thing about it and would be civil with them whenever I came across them, so they would be invited. I thought this would avoid a crisis, but during my weekly dinner with my granddad, Grandma's passed, he mentioned that the family has decided that they will not come to the wedding if my mom doesn't feel comfortable going. There was no wider explanation of what would make her comfortable, however, and I'm not about to cause an argument with my granddad by pushing him. This topic now comes up quite a lot at our weekly dinners, and it came out today that it stems from our mentioning that we would have a top table at the wedding, featuring my partner's parents, best man, maid of honor, etc., but my mom wouldn't be there. Effectively, the demand from the family is that if my mom isn't sat at the top table, then she wouldn't feel comfortable as it's a public snub, despite our estrangement not being a secret, and therefore the rest of my family wouldn't go. They're saying I'm being unreasonable and putting demands on the family by sitting her at a family table. I want my family to come to my wedding, but I cannot sit next to that woman on my wedding day. I'm feeling a bit upset about all this, so I'm querying whether or not I'm the jerk. Anyway, all direct feedback would be appreciated. Our next story is, am I the jerk for expecting my partner to spend more time with me and my kids? My partner and I live apart, but very close by. We each have kids from previous relationships. We've been together off and on for about a decade, broke up for a year in the middle. To my kids, he's their dad. Our kids don't mingle much but know who each other are. This is due to his kids' moms, 2 ex-wives, being extremely litigious and would bury us in court drama for years and drain us financially if they knew he was with me. His youngest's mother, who does not have custody and just gained unsupervised visits recently, has married a millionaire, so naturally we're very worried about her trying to go back to court for custody. We would not survive that financially. I'm a nurse and he's a teacher. So, am I the jerk? My kids and I go to my partner's house every other weekend when my partner doesn't have his kids. I have exclusive custody, no visits whatsoever by their bio of my kids. By the time my weekends arrive for my kiddos and I to be at my partner's, he often says he's tired and needs alone time. He also schedules his poker nights he hosts at the house for our weekends. Since he has custody of his youngest, he only gets a break from the little one when he's with his mom on her weekends. Well, those are my weekends with my kiddos and my partner. While I agree that he should get alone time, everyone should, I'm frustrated it always comes out of my weekends my kids and I get to spend with him. My partner's parents are the after-school care for the youngest and help out a lot, so he doesn't feel comfortable asking them to babysit more to accommodate his alone time. They're also in their early 70s by now, so it's too much for them to do more. My partner doesn't want my kids and I to stay over this full weekend. He refuses to tell me why and keeps saying he doesn't need a reason. No is a complete sentence. Meanwhile, my kids are dying to see their dad and count down each day until it's their time again. We fight about this constantly. Am I the jerk or is he? I don't think OP's the jerk, but at what point do you understand that things are so crossed and almost just incompatible, and except that's really the crux of this. This next story is, am I the jerk for being angry at my stepmother? So I asked my partner to marry me, and the first people I told were my mother and then my father, who were both extremely happy. About an hour later, my stepmother messages me saying that I could have told my younger brother. He's 14 and was in bed and I would have told him today, and that he's very depressed and in a bad place, and that it's my fault for not talking to him more. I talk to him most days to see how he's doing. I'm 30 and, as all adults do, I have my own responsibilities, and either way, I still like to think I'm a good brother. I shut her down completely, saying my brother's mood and me getting married are nothing to do with each other. She sounded drunk when, after a few exchanges, which I was exceptionally polite in considering the circumstances, decided to phone me where I told her that she has no right and that I've done nothing wrong. She then decided to suggest that I won't see my brother again, which is ridiculous and seems, if I'm being completely honest, crazy. My little brother messaged me apologizing for his mom's behavior, and it turns out she told him when she apparently started screaming at my dad because I'm getting married. It all seems really bizarre. My dad and brother are on my side, but it seems very abnormal. Am I the jerk for telling her she has no right trying to connect my brother's mental health to me getting engaged? This next story is, am I the jerk for getting upset at my fiance for telling me to not eat his leftovers at dinner? Last night I just finished shift 3 out of 3, I'm an ICU RN, and I ranted to him about how busy I was because of a pain in the butt patient who was a hot mess express. He made me a wonderful dinner, and I thought it would be a great night. Prior to that, I'd only had one meal the whole day at 1 p.m. He made some great loco moco and rice, and towards the end I had extra meat that I finished. He was full and there was still some saucy rice on his plate, which I took and started to finish up too. Snippily, he goes, "That's just rice, leave it alone." We're also kind of on a health kick right now, so I took offense to it and took it as a, "Hey, you're being fat, stop eating." Then we got mad at each other the whole night, but his defense is, "I meant that it's just garbage. I can't even tell you how I feel without you starting to cry, blah blah. Like, I'm just tired from work. Let me eat your freaking rice, it's not a big deal. You can just shut the freak up and let me enjoy." But I can't decide if I was a whiny baby jerk or not. Definitely not a whiny baby jerk, and also considering your only other meal happened at 1 p.m., you probably needed that rice. Our next story is, am I the jerk for falling out with my mom for opening my mail? So I never really have any falling outs with my parents. However, my mom has had this really annoying habit of opening mine and my brother's mail for years. For context, I'm 30, he's 38, and we don't live at home and haven't for years. I don't really get any mail sent there and haven't for ages apart from this one letter that I'm about to explain. Anyway, I applied for my dream job with the police, and my "sorry you were unsuccessful" letter ended up at my mom's house. She called me as I was coming out of an exam last week and asked me, "There's a letter here, do you want me to open it?" I told her, "No, I'll pop by and pick it up." She again says, "It's in a brown envelope. Shall I open it?" Again, I said no. I already knew what the letter was. I already had an email to tell me I was unsuccessful, but I wasn't ready to tell my parents yet, as I was understandably pretty upset. I turned up to my parents' house yesterday to collect the letter, and it's clearly been opened and taped back up. My mom said, "Your letter's on the side." I asked her if she opened it, and she said no. Even my friend who I was with said there's no way they would send a letter out with tape on it like that. It's clearly been opened. I didn't confront my mom, I just got the letter and left. But I'm really upset and angry about it and haven't spoken to her since and don't want to. I guess I'm still in a state of embarrassment that I didn't get the job, even though I know it's just one of those things. How much do you guys want to bet that they got that letter, opened it up, read through it, and then called OP to tell them? They probably said, "Do you want me to open it?" hoping that OP would be like, "Yeah, okay, go ahead." Our next story is, am I the jerk for having my 3-year-old birthday party on Super Bowl Sunday? Short and sweet, am I the jerk for having his birthday party on Super Bowl Sunday? The party's at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., the game starts at 5:30 p.m., and it's not even going to be our home team, the Cowboys. So far, my father-in-law and my own mom have expressed issue with this, but I can't seem to understand why it's such a big deal. There's an hour and a half between party and game time. We've had this party planned for over a month, and it seems ridiculous to change the date just because a few people want to watch the game. I think not only is it fine to have it on Super Bowl Sunday, you scheduled it where they shouldn't have any issue, unless they're going to some Super Bowl party an hour and a half away. I guess if somebody's hosting their own party. Our next story is, am I the jerk for asking my spouse to plan my 40th birthday and then canceling it because the plans they made sounded sad? I'm turning 40 soon and feel some kind of way about it. I asked my person to plan my birthday because it feels really lame to throw myself a birthday party. This year, my birthday falls on a Wednesday. Instead of having a party the weekend before or after, they put out a message telling people to swing by and say hi Wednesday evening, open house style. People don't want to get home from work, leave their house again, and go say hi to someone on a Wednesday evening in the middle of winter. It very much sounds like I'll just be sitting on the couch and waiting to see if anyone has time to randomly come through, which just feels really sad and depressing. So I told my person to cancel it. They have fully skipped my birthday in the past with no celebration, gift, or even so much as going out to eat. So I was really clear that I wanted them to step up and plan something rad. But here we are. Am I the jerk? I'll accept my judgment. I don't think OP's the jerk, but I do think OP could have supplied some suggestions or general expectations of what they would expect a party to look like. I mean, I'm guessing considering this person hasn't done stuff like that in the past, they're not really familiar with the whole hosting, throwing, scheduling a party. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to let my sister and her family stay at our vacation home despite previous financial issues? So my sister Sarah and her family of 4, husband and 2 kids under 10, had been planning a vacation to our beach house for the past 6 months. They'd booked their flight and everything. A week before their trip, my husband and I decided that we wanted to take a last-minute vacation to the house as well. When I told Sarah this, she was understandably upset and asked if they could still come and we could all just squeeze into the house together. I refused and told her that we'd already paid for the trip and I didn't want to share the house with her and her family. Now, before you all jump on me, I should mention that Sarah and I have a bit of a complicated relationship. We're sisters, but we've never been particularly close. We've had our fair share of arguments and disagreements over the years. Recently, my husband and I lent Sarah and her family a large sum of money to help them out of a financial crisis. They promised to pay us back within a year, but it's been over 18 months and we haven't seen a dime yet. I've brought it up to Sarah a few times, but she always brushes it off and changes the subject. So when she asked to come stay at our vacation home, I couldn't help but feel a little resentful. I know it sounds terrible, but I just didn't want to spend my hard-earned vacation time with someone who had taken advantage of my kindness. I also didn't want to risk her and her family damaging our property. It has happened before. Sarah, of course, was furious with me and is refusing to speak to me. My other family members are also siding with her and thinking I'm in the wrong. So, Reddit, am I the jerk for refusing to let my sister and her family stay at our vacation home? Should I have put my resentment aside and let them come stay? Or was it fair for me to put my own interests first? They had booked this for 6 months. A week before, you dropped the ball, hey, sorry, actually, I want to go there myself. Good luck, have fun. You really posted that on the internet thinking anybody would not see you as a jerk? Our next story is, am I the jerk for bringing my daughter to work? I work for a fairly small business. Pretty much anything goes. They just expect you to get your job done. Or so I thought. Yesterday, all plans to babysit my daughter fell through, and my wife and I both had to work. My wife is a nurse, so obviously she couldn't do it, so my only option was to take my daughter into work or call off. So I did. She's barely old enough to walk, so it was kind of hard, but I still got work done. She was mostly just happy as a clam being in my office and playing with toys. Anyways, no one said they had a problem with it until this morning where the owner wanted to speak to me. He said it set a bad precedent and I was lucky not to be fired. We're pretty much friends outside of work and I'm vital, so I know he wouldn't really fire me. But he went on to say that other people will want to start also and I need to be more professional. He said he's paying me to work, not run a personal daycare. I know that it's his business and he needs to think about it, but no one else is going to start doing whatever they want because I brought my daughter in for a day. I usually have 3 hours of doing nothing by the end of the day anyway. I'm not falling behind. I don't think I'm the jerk. I'm the only one who can do what I do for his business and he needs me around. He's kind of the jerk for treating me like a wage employee when I'm so indispensable and have been so reliable and useful to him. Am I the jerk? The environment honestly sounds kind of nice. I imagine it's pretty laid back, there's not really corporate. But I think most people would agree bringing your kid to work Okay, maybe one time, but if you want to try to make a habit out of it, you're definitely trying to push boundaries that the owner has to address. Also, OP is very quick to take advantage of the fact that they're chummy with the owner. Don't clear it, just try to expect that, hey, we're friends, you can let me slide. Am I the jerk for using the treadmill at my building gym for 4 hours? My building has a small residence gym with about 8 pieces of cardio equipment, 3 bikes, 3 stair/elliptical machines, and 4 treadmills, on top of some strength training machines, weights areas, and 2 benches. I use the treadmill for 4 hours a day. Light jog, it's not like I'm Usain Bolting for that long. From 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. The gym operates 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. During this time, the gym is almost always empty from 6 to 7:45, and again from around 8:30 to 10 a.m. Pre-7:45 seems too early for people, and post-8:30 too late, assuming getting ready or starting work. I say at an absolute maximum, all 4 treadmills are occupied for perhaps 15 minutes every other day. I did a test today, and for the entire 4 hours, there was at least 1 treadmill free, and I was alone for over 3 hours of the run. There are plenty of days where capacity isn't hit at all, and the days on which it's a very limited time slot from maybe 8:15 to 8:30. On average, I probably run alone for over half the time, and with 1 to 2 others, so still at least 1 treadmill free for the entirety of the rest. I understand the concerns around hogging equipment, and I'm not remotely denying 4 hours is a very long time. However, there is clearly capacity in the gym, which in Manhattan, we pay a ludicrous amount to live in anyway, obviously. You could argue I should step off from 8:15 to 8:30 if I can see the gym is full, but even then it's 15 minutes 1 to 2 times a week that all 4 are in use. Either way, we got an email from management reminding us the max to be on any cardio equipment is 45 minutes. I am 99% sure it's aimed at me, as this morning, about 3 hours in, a lady, I believe it was the building manager's assistant, informed me of the rule, tapping me on the shoulder. I continued asking why it's a rule and gestured at the 3 free treadmills next to me. I asked, if I hop to another treadmill, does that comply with the rule? What about switching to a Peloton? She didn't have an answer and just said the rule comes from management and left. 15 minutes later, a doorman comes. Same thing, same conversation. He asks my apartment number and I tell him, and he again repeats it's from management and walks off. Am I insane or am I missing something here? If the treadmills were in high demand and I was single-handedly blocking 25% capacity for the entire morning slot, I would of course be a gigantic jerk with no consideration for others with busy schedules. As I've tried to point out in this post, that is not the case. I'm sure some people will say clearly I'm not telling the truth, as clearly people have complained or something. There are cameras in the gym, and if management confronts me, I'll challenge them to review footage, and if they can find more than a 15-minute slot at once, or 30 minutes throughout the entire week, where all 4 are in use when I'm there, I will back down. I really don't understand, but Reddit, am I missing something, and am I in fact the jerk? Honestly, I think this all starts with whatever lease OP signed. If they don't have any language in there about restricting usage of services like the gym, do they really have a leg to stand on to enforce this when OP isn't even denying people of a gym experience? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for accidentally destroying someone's book? Last week, I borrowed one of my friend's books. We're not that close, but we both share a love of reading. Anyway, I was reading said book whilst in the bath last week, and it led to me accidentally dropping it into the tub. The pages are ruined, and the book is expanded quite a bit, but in my opinion, it's still readable. Of course, though, I still felt very guilty and I offered to replace it. She refused and said I shouldn't worry about it. Accidents happen after all. But now I found out that she's going behind my back and telling all of our mutual friends about it. She isn't saying it directly, but she's heavily implying that I didn't try to do anything about it. I'm pretty sure I'm not the jerk, but some of my other friends say I should just be the bigger person and replace her book. However, I'm feeling quite hurt by her words and am now very reluctant to purchase something for her. So what should I do about it? Should I just ignore it or just go ahead and buy her a book? So I don't blame OP for feeling the way they do when their friend went around making comments after saying it's fine. But at the same time, I would have replaced the book immediately after making a screw up like that without ever asking or being prompted. Our next story is, am I the jerk for taking my daughters to work even though my coworker said he didn't want me to do that? I'm female, 26. My coworker, 50-year-old male, hates children. He started working with me just 2 weeks ago, and from the first day he told me to remove the photos of my children, 10-year-old female, 9-year-old female, 8-year-old female, and 1-year-old female, from the office because it seems unprofessional to him. Of course, I didn't remove them because it's not against any rules, so I kept them there. That pissed him off, and he told me to remove them again, but I didn't. And since then, we've had a strained relationship. A few days ago, my husband, 30-year-old male, picked up our older daughters early from school and dropped them off at my office. And just to clarify, my boss knows that he does that from time to time when their babysitter has to do something else, and she doesn't have a problem with it. In fact, she's told me many times that she likes them to go because they love to help. But my coworker hated it. He said the next time they go there, talk to HR and hopefully they'll kick me out because I'm unprofessional. I told him to do it, that I didn't care, and before he did, I talked to them. And since my boss agrees and other colleagues didn't complain about them, they told me that there's no problem because they usually only go there for 30 minutes, or sometimes even less time. My husband kept taking them to work, and this morning my coworker confronted me furiously because he told me that I'm a jerk, that I need to understand that he hates children, that it's his workspace too, and that I must respect it. But I'm not going to stop doing it because I know that my daughters do not bother anyone. They don't even talk to them, and they're not even in our office because sometimes they're helping the woman who cleans to pick up the coffee cups, etc. So am I the jerk for continuing to do that? If you have approval by management and the ones who actually call the shots, you're golden. Although I think I would want to do a little bit of amateur background check on this guy. His behavior towards children just seems off. Like, obviously your children aren't even coming close to interacting with this guy. This next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting to lie to my son for the sake of family harmony? My parents always wanted grandchildren, and both my brother and I wanted children. But both of us ended up facing fertility issues with our respective partners. My wife and I decided to eventually start working with a surrogate. Our parents are old-fashioned, but they try to be happy for us. My brother also tried. His wife did not. His wife is as against the concept of surrogacy as it's possible to be and always has been. We found a friend who was willing, and we now have a son. Sister-in-law went crazy. She spent months blasting all of us about how horrible we all were, that we supported all sorts of terrible practices because we were doing this, etc. She refused to go to our baby shower or see us in the hospital, but she did send a new mom kit meant for our surrogate with things to help a pregnant person recover from childbirth. My brother apologized for her but said he couldn't change her mind. A few months later, my brother and his wife announced a spontaneous pregnancy. After more than 5 years of trying, our parents were thrilled, and so were we. We were willing to put it all behind us. They had a daughter, and it only intensified her views. She refused to bring the baby over for holidays or to meet her cousin because she refused to have her daughter raised to view women as objects. Years later, she softened to have our parents around without us at least. My parents want the whole family together again. She's agreed to a compromise that she's willing to do holidays and family outings as long as we never tell the children that our son is from a surrogate. Our parents think we should do this because she has a point and they were always uneasy with it. I don't agree. This isn't some shameful secret that we should be ashamed of. We didn't do anything wrong. My wife is adamant that we shouldn't, but wants our son to have a cousin. My parents are calling me as much as I'll answer to beg me to consider. My brother just wants the tension to stop and isn't going to fight with her anymore. I just feel bad for the brother because you clearly can tell he doesn't believe it, but unless he wants to rock the boat with somebody he's already committed to, he's gotta swallow those feelings inside. This next story is, am I the jerk for deferring an issue with a female Muslim student to a female colleague? I, 36-year-old male, and my wife moved to our area 7 years ago for my wife to pursue a job opportunity where the population happened to be exclusively white. In the last couple years or so, we've had an increase in the non-white population, including the first Muslim students I've had since before moving here. I grew up in an ethnically diverse area, so not being surrounded by multicultural people and restaurants has been an adjustment. I teach high school science, and my 2 Muslim students are cousins I'll call Amira and Nadia. I'm not well versed in religion since my area of expertise is sciences, but I'd like to think I have some basic knowledge of major religions. Today, Amira was out sick, so it was just Nadia in my class. The kids were working on a worksheet while I was trying to get grading wrapped up and submitted, and when I looked up, I realized Nadia's head covering had shifted and hair on her forehead was exposed. I panicked and looked away as soon as I realized. I would have asked Amira to take Nadia into the office between my classroom and my female colleagues next door to fix it, but without Amira there, I ended up ducking into my colleague's classroom and disrupting her class. I waited until she acknowledged my presence and then waved her over to speak to her quietly, to ask her to please bring Nadia into the office to fix her head covering, and I would keep an eye on her class. My colleague, Mrs. Smith, asked why I couldn't do it, and I said, because I'm an unrelated man. She made a weird face at me but eventually said, fine, and went to go get Nadia. When she came back, she was not at all polite when she said, it's fixed. I thanked her and tried to brush off her attitude, and I asked Nadia to stay back a moment after class, just long enough to apologize if I embarrassed her. She said it was fine and left. I got home at 3:30, but at 6 p.m. I got a call from my principal, Mrs. Waters, outside of working hours, telling me that Mrs. Smith had complained about my unprofessional conduct regarding Nadia, and that I'm expected to attend a meeting on Monday with her, Mrs. Smith, Nadia, and her parents to discuss what should be done about my actions. I asked what I had done wrong. She refused to elaborate beyond unprofessional conduct. I told her I expected my in-building union representative to be present at the meeting, or I wouldn't go, and she said she would email our building rep. I feel ambushed. I don't even know what I did wrong, and I'm not going to lie. I'm really upset and anxious right now. Am I the jerk? The thing to keep in mind and to stick to is you always meant well. You did what you thought in the moment was the best solution, not to harm anybody involved. This next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting to give a traditional wedding gift to my fiance's family? I, male 30, am an American living in Asia, and recently got engaged to my wonderful fiancée, female 25, and things have been going great, until we started talking about some wedding details. My wife was born and raised and has lived her whole life in this country, and things are a bit more old school here. She told me that it's tradition for the groom to give a gift to the bride's family, and at first I thought it was no big deal, but then when I found out more about it, I started to be against it. Typically, the bride will ask her parents what a suitable amount is for the gift, which involves cash and gold, I guess. They told her I should give $3,000 in cash, and then gold jewelry and stuff, which will be another $1,000 basically. I thought this was nuts. For context, the average salary in this country is only around $500 per month, so this is a lot of money by local standards. Her family's quite well off though. Parents are in their late 50s and both retired, so it's not like they need the financial help, I think. I already have to pay for the wedding 100% myself. It's also tradition here for the groom to do that, where we have to invite her very large extended family, as well as dozens and dozens of her parents' family friends, meaning our wedding will be around 300 guests. This is all going to cost me so much, to the point that I worry I can barely afford it. Not only is that a lot of money, but it doesn't sit well with me that I basically have to pay a dowry for her. It feels like something from the 1800s and quite misogynistic. I've told my fiancée all of this and now she's very upset with me. She says her parents are quite traditional and there's no way they'll accept our marriage if I don't give the gifts. Supposedly, if I don't give the gifts, it'll look like I don't care about her and our marriage will have bad luck. Her sister, 30-year-old female, is married already, and I guess her husband, 32-year-old male, gave the gifts at their wedding. My fiancé stopped answering my texts now, and I'm wondering, am I the jerk? I don't think OP's crazy here, but regardless of what they do, I hope they're ready for a continual culture clash every step of the way, at least when they have to interact with those parents. Our next story is, am I the jerk for wanting my tenants to pay for the huge water bill due to lawn sprinklers? Our tenants have been living there for a year now, and they've always made payments on time. A week ago, the water company sent them a $5,000 bill along with a notice that they've been using abnormally large amounts of water for the past 3 months. The water bill is in their name, and the company bills once every 2 months. When I got there, I was surprised to see a tiny circle of lawn sprinklers squirting in the lawn. I didn't even realize our property was installed with lawn sprinklers. I've previously lived there for years and have never turned them on. But apparently they were turned on somehow and have been left like that for months. I didn't even know how to turn them off, so I just hired a plumber to shut off the valve to the sprinklers. I paid for the plumber. In our lease, it specified that they'll pay for utilities and water, but the tenant said they don't know how it was turned on, and that they just didn't notice the sprinklers going off in the yard for months during the rainy season. Now they want us to foot the bill, because they say it's our fault that they were never informed of the sprinkler's existence. But I know they must have turned it on somehow while living there, because I've lived there for ages without anything happening. I don't understand how they couldn't notice lawn sprinklers going off for months without telling us or doing anything. The water company is unwilling to lower the bill, and I think they should pay it. Although I might be willing to pay a part of it as a symbol of good faith. They told me their finances are very tight. They're 3 college friends in their 20s with no dependents, working as very highly paid engineers at Microsoft. So I know they can pay it off when their paycheck arrives. Am I the jerk? So you're telling me, in the lease or whatnot, they agreed to pay all of the water costs. You know yourself did not turn the sprinklers on, and you weren't even living there when the sprinklers were running? I don't see how OP could be held responsible for any of that. And OP didn't even know the sprinklers existed. I mean, if something with the sprinklers broke, OP was never even informed that they were there to begin with. This next story is, am I the jerk letting my parents take our son for the night without asking my husband? I, 23-year-old female, have been pretty overwhelmed lately with my son, 3-year-old male, getting to that stage where they're just a bundle of destructive energy. I normally have the energy to deal with it all, but I'm suffering a bit from burnout. My parents, 41-year-old female and 42-year-old male, offered to take him for the night and I agreed. My parents were great parents and even better grandparents, so I trust them completely. My husband's 30-year-old male parents, on the other hand, were terrible parents, so I think he has some trouble trusting mine. When my husband came home and I told him that our son is staying with my parents that night, he got angry and called me a jerk for not asking him. I just wanted a night's break, but I feel terrible now for not even thinking to ask him and only thinking about myself. Am I the jerk? Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my mother that I'm no longer her son? I was 18 years old at the time, when my mother and I were the only ones working. Due to my father being disabled, my sister still in high school, and my brother who has autism. My parents didn't really like each other during their marriage for reasons unknown to me, though they stuck together because of us. Though one day, my father decided to show me one of the reasons they didn't get along. He drove me to a casino in the night to show me my mother gambling after I recently gave her $3,000 for bills. I was in severe shock and pain knowing I got used. Afterward, my relationship with my mother wasn't the same, but I also stayed because of my siblings. 2 years later, I helped pay bills to keep us afloat. But one day, I find my mother asking for money from my sister and brother, who only get their money on holidays and their birthdays, in which I got furious and told her to back away from them to talk in another room. I said, this is enough, and that she has control of herself, or we're strangers from now on. I'm moving out. In which she replied, then you're turning your back on family. That's where I replied back saying, no, I'm just turning my back on you. I took action to threaten our mother and son relationship and that I would move out if she didn't heed my warning. I'm posting this to see if I was the jerk for being too harsh and rude to her. I don't think OP was too harsh, but I think OP has to be prepared to actually follow through if necessary. This next story is, am I the jerk for not giving my brother the photos of our mom when she married his dad? I, female 32, have 2 half-brothers, male 50 and male 54. My mom was married to their father for 20 years and then later married my dad. My grandmother had come to visit us and brought some pictures of my mom from the wedding to my brother's dad. I saw them and decided to take one of the pictures of my mother. When my parents got married, since it was a second marriage for my mother, she didn't have a big traditional wedding, and so there were no pictures of her wearing a wedding dress. My brother, male 50, came over this past weekend and asked about the pictures. Apparently, my grandmother told him she was bringing the pictures for him when he realized I had taken one of the pictures. He had gotten really mad about it and demanded I give it to him. I didn't feel like I needed to give it to him since it was just a picture of our mom. My mom offered to make him a copy, and he said that I should have the copy and he have the original. He ended up leaving after telling me I was being a jerk about it. I might be the jerk because it was a picture of my mom from his parents' wedding day. I would lean towards agreeing that OP should be the one that accepts a copy of it. It clearly has much more tie and meaning to the brother. Also, OP literally said, "Grandma dropped off some pictures for my brother," which OP then took one of them. How much more do you need to go off of? Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my daughter she's too old to be sitting on my lap? I, 37-year-old female, am married to my husband, 38-year-old male, and we have a daughter together, 11-year-old female. My daughter is very small for her age, and as a result gets treated like a younger child sometimes. She loves to hop in my or my husband's lap and cuddle with us on the couch or in a chair. I've been thinking that she may be too old for that sort of thing, and maybe I'm hurting her by letting her continue. Yesterday, she tried to hop in my lap and cuddle, and I told her she was too old for that and to get off me. She got really upset, got off me, and went to her room and slammed the door. She hasn't tried to get in my lap since then, and things are tense between us. She doesn't talk to me unless she has to, and when I hugged her goodnight last night, she didn't hug me back. I feel really guilty because I obviously hurt her feelings, but I feel like she might be too old for sitting on my lap. Am I the jerk? So first of all, when it comes to a parent and their kid cuddling, is there an age that it should be too old for them to sit on your lap and cuddle? Granted, it doesn't like crush your legs. This honestly just looks like OP doesn't want to cuddle with their kid. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my parents they have to pay for my wedding? I, female 28, am getting married to a pretty great guy, 32. He's a teacher and he's very happy with his decision to become a teacher. I work for a tech company and we do pretty well financially. We've been together for 4 years and have finally decided to get married. His parents were happy and mine were overjoyed. One small wrinkle is that my parents expect us to have a massive church wedding with a few hundred guests. We were thinking Jamaica this summer during his time off. We're willing to do what my parents want, but I'm unwilling to foot the bill. My mom and I met with a wedding planner for an estimate, $35,000 to $45,000. If we go to the resort we've picked out, it'll cost like $10,000. And that includes paying for his parents and nephew to join us. My parents know how much money I earn and are insisting that I pay for the wedding myself. We've been very clear. If they want to show off to their friends, they can pay for it. We even volunteered to throw in the money we would have spent on my in-laws for the destination wedding we want. My mom says I'm being a jerk by denying her the chance to see her only daughter married in front of friends and family. I'm not. I'm just not willing to pay for it. My parents can afford to pay for the wedding. It might just mean putting off replacing their car this year. I mean, before this goes back and forth too long, I say just make sure to settle down to do what you want to do. This next story is, am I the jerk for ruining my sister's one chance to eat at a restaurant? This happened on a cruise that we recently got back from. My husband, sister, and sister's husband and I went on a cruise together with our kids. As you may know, food is typically included on cruise fare. What you eat on the boat is free. What you eat in port isn't. Anyway, my sister saw a local restaurant and really wanted to try the local cuisine. I thought that was a waste of money, but I understand why she wanted to go, because it's the cuisine of a foreign country she might never return to. I said I would take my kids to a nearby attraction while they ate, and they could meet me there afterwards, because I wasn't hungry. My sister's kids also wanted to go to the local attraction as opposed to a restaurant. I thought this was a good idea because it would allow the other adults to enjoy their meal more, so I said I would take them as well. My sister's husband said he felt weird about me having all 4 kids alone while in a foreign country, so he would also go with me. My sister said just forget it after he said that. I told her to enjoy the restaurant. There would be no rush and we would just chill at the local attraction. She said she didn't want to eat out alone. My husband said he would eat with her, but she just glared at him. The little tiff blew over for the most part, but we did end up arguing about it on the last day on the boat, where she said it was pretty petty and childish of me to ruin her chance to enjoy the restaurant she'd probably never have a chance to eat at again. I told her no one ruined her chance and she could have gone. She said obviously she wouldn't want to experience it with just my husband. I asked what she wanted me to have done, and she said if I was just going to be a jerk about it, we wouldn't talk about it. So was I being a jerk about it? I think this anger and frustration the sister needs to target towards her husband for not buckling down and going with her to eat at the restaurant to enjoy that experience with her. That's not OP's fault that her husband was willing to just give it up and thereby make the experience not worthwhile. Our next story is, am I the jerk for scraping the ice and snow off my roommate's girlfriend's car? I, 26-year-old male, live in New York with a roommate, 29-year-old male, and it's fine. We aren't close friends or anything, but we get along, keep clean, and pay rent on time. I'm originally from the rural Midwest, and the stereotype that people are mean in New York is very true. I was always considered the darker, odd one in the Midwest because I preferred not to talk to people. But in New York, it seems extreme. I'm fine with it, but if someone walks in your eye line and you smile at them, they will look at you like you are insane. Where I come from, you could encounter a random stranger anywhere and have a long, in-depth conversation with them. Just in general, people are nicer. In the winter, if I got off from my job at 9 and another person got off at 7, if they saw it snowed but it stopped snowing, they would brush the snow and scrape the ice off my car. I would do the same for a coworker. In New York, people get offended when you say ma'am or sir, but in the rural Midwest or South, people get offended if you don't say that. Recently, my roommate's girlfriend stayed over during a snowstorm. My roommate doesn't have a car, but his girlfriend does. The snow died down after a couple of days, and when I went out to leave in the morning, I brushed the snow off my car and also did the same to the girlfriend's car. I also shoveled enough snow that we could both back out. I didn't even say I did it or mentioned it, but when I got back home in the night, my roommate looked upset. He was like, "Never do that crap again." I don't even know what he was talking about, and when I asked him to clarify, he just said, "You know." Eventually, he told me that brushing snow and scraping ice off of other people's cars is weird. I told him that it's not even a big deal and it's just a nice thing to do. I asked if his girlfriend was pissed about it or something, and he said that she was happy, and pointed out how I'm always a really nice person. Is this weird to do? I don't think brushing snow off someone's car after you do yours is weird or makes me the jerk. OP's being an absolute darling, and honestly, I think the friend is a little scared that their girlfriend kinda likes OP. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling the mother of my boyfriend's son to run an upgrade on her parenting style? My boyfriend, 32-year-old male, and I, 35-year-old female, have been together for 1 year. I haven't got any kids. He has a 4-year-old son who lives with his mom, my boyfriend's ex. My boyfriend fetches his son every weekend. He's recently introduced me to his son. We get along really well. He's sweet and very talkative. I've helped raise my nieces and nephews, so I think that I'm good with kids. I don't believe in hitting kids. We talk things through. This has been my approach with my boyfriend's son too. He is always up to something, taking things apart or pressing buttons, but that's because he's just curious. I always speak to him calmly and have started explaining things to him. So now he asks me questions like, what does this do? What is this? And we explore these things together, less things being broken. I recently received a call from the mother of my boyfriend's son asking me to stop using all these new age phrases on her child. She said that my funny things are interfering with her parenting style. Apparently the boy said, "Don't shout, mommy, speak soft like auntie." He also said, "Okay, take a deep breath, mommy," whenever she would raise her voice at him. At first I told her that I wasn't trying to interfere with her parenting style, but that's how I deal with children. She told me to go make my own kids and then teach them crap. That hurt me, and I told her that maybe her parenting style needs an update. Now she refuses to let the child be around me. She's starting to refuse my boyfriend access to his son because of my interference. My friend thinks that I shouldn't have told her that her parenting needs an update and let my boyfriend handle this instead. I feel terrible. Am I the jerk? Sounds like a court trip is in order here, and honestly, I personally think what my parenting style would align more with OP's anyways. So I'm kind of biased, but I don't think yelling or especially hitting a kid is ever a good thing. Am I the jerk for including both of my daughters? My husband and I have 2 daughters, Jenny 14 and Tara 15. Tara was extremely sick. I won't get into details for privacy, but we went through heck. For 2 years, I had to be in the hospital all the time, and my husband had to work 2 jobs to be able to pay for the hospital. We decided that the best thing to do for Jenny would be to send her to live with my mother-in-law who lives in another city. She's the only close family we have. We were trying to give Jenny a normal life, otherwise she would spend all her time in a hospital like us. Now that Tara's better, things are a lot better and we asked Jenny to come back home, and she was glad to do so. However, she only ever spends time with her dad, never with me or Tara, and she never says why she doesn't want to spend time with us. Not just that, but she also actively bullies Tara any chance she gets. Last night, her dad managed to convince her to go out to dinner with me. Tara and I got ready and we were waiting for Jenny. She came out of her room and saw us there, turned to my husband, and said she changed her mind and went back to her room. I followed her and asked her what's wrong. She started screaming at me, asking me if I have to include Tara in everything. She accused me of not enjoying spending my time with her and bringing Tara so that I could spend time with Tara and pretend to like Jenny. I told her this isn't true and I was just trying to have a girls' night with both of my daughters, but she screamed at me to get out and called me a jerk and other names. I don't think OP is the jerk necessarily. I don't think they ever intended to try to play favorites or anything, but I think it's very important for OP to realize how much Jenny missed out on and how important it is to give them one-on-one attention and time. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for making a harmless joke about my formerly overweight friend? I've, 22-year-old female, been friends with James, 22-year-old male, since we started college. Around 7 to 8 months ago, he decided to change his lifestyle and be healthier. He was overweight but already lost a lot of weight and fitter. I was his workout/motivation buddy throughout these months, but lately he's been confident enough to do his own thing. A couple of weeks ago, we went to a friend's party. It wasn't really a party, more of a low-key get-together. James is shy and awkward and tends to stick to me whenever we go to social environments with lots of people. But at some point, this tipsy girl came up to him and seemed clearly interested. She was ignoring me entirely. I was about to walk off when she asked me in front of several others if James and I are together. I laughed and joked that she wouldn't have asked me this if she had seen him last year. I was immediately told by some friends that it was a mean thing to say. And in hindsight, James seemed a little speechless. The girl asked me what I meant, and I explained that he used to be way chubbier. Then she shrugged and said he's hot and would take him off me if I didn't mind. I thought this was trashy and just left. Afterwards, I spoke to James in private, and he seemed to have gotten his feelings hurt. I explained it was just a joke because last year nobody would have assumed we're together. I mean, the whole point of the joke was that he's considered more attractive now, but I know his true awkward self in past. Am I the jerk in this situation? I'm going to say pretty clearly OP is the jerk. I mean, what is OP actually insinuating when they say, "You wouldn't have asked me a year ago"? Is that a joke, or is OP just very openly saying, well, he was too ugly and or overweight a year ago? How else are you supposed to interpret that? I'm surprised the person who's going and says that is somebody that's also a motivation buddy. Our next story is, am I the jerk for letting my father cause a huge scene at my engagement party and embarrassing my future mother-in-law? My father has many faults. I'm well aware of these and therefore tend to keep our interactions private. I still love him and I've developed a system to keep him from messing me over. When my fiance asked me to marry him, I said yes, and then I went and privately told my dad about it. We had a nice dinner with my fiance and that was that. My future mother-in-law wanted to have an engagement party. I was fine with it. I just requested that she not invite my father. I explained that we had a strained relationship and that I preferred to keep him at a distance. She agreed. I guess she thought she knew better than me. She wanted to fix our relationship, and the first step was inviting him to her home for a party with alcohol. When I met my dad for dinner, I specifically chose a restaurant that didn't have a liquor license, and we went right after work. His car has a breathalyzer built in to make it start. I know what would happen otherwise. When I saw my dad there, my stomach flipped. I asked her what was going on, and she said that a good daughter would want her dad there on this important day. I asked her to please make him leave. She said I was being rude. I went over to my dad and asked him to leave. He promised to behave. He was so happy to be invited. I told my fiance that I might need to leave in a hurry, and he had to come with me when I left. He knows the whole story. He agreed. My father was fine at the beginning. Then wine came around. I glared at him and shook my head no. He took some, then more, then more. He started getting happy. That doesn't last. After dinner, there were drinks. As soon as I heard him raise his voice, I asked my fiance to leave. I faked a stomach problem and we left. The least embarrassing thing he did was piss himself and puke on the lawn. My future mother-in-law is furious. She said that we should have told her that my father has a drinking problem. I said that it wouldn't have been a problem if she hadn't lied to my face about not inviting him. My father is humiliated that he did this. I'm just numb. My uncle has no problem controlling my dad. He's a cop and he's come to several events with my dad where he kept him from drinking. My older brother's wedding, for example. But he lives in another city. He would have been at the wedding. I'm just angry that she lied, and I'm embarrassed, and I'm venting here because I need someone to tell me that I'm not the jerk for not wanting to tell people my father is like this. I think this one just simply starts and ends with the fact that OP said, "Don't invite this person." They said, "Okay," and then turn around and invite that person. Our next story is, am I the jerk for choosing to go on a trip with my girlfriend instead of taking care of my struggling brother's son? For context, my 24-year-old male, brother Luke, 31-year-old male, and his wife Emma, 28-year-old female, and their son Kyle, a 4-year-old male, moved to my city last year because Emma got a new job. They would occasionally ask me to watch Kyle because I work from home with very flexible hours. I personally did not like kids at all, but I was happy to do it at the time because I wanted to help them. It wasn't that often, maybe once or twice every 2 weeks, and Kyle was very well behaved. Now, the issue started near the end of last year when Luke decided to change careers. He was previously working remotely as well. His new job required him to go to work a lot more often and make substantially less money. This left them depending on me more and more to take care of Kyle. It went from once or twice every 2 weeks to around 3 days out of the week. To make matters worse, Kyle's behavior changed drastically. To be completely honest, I can barely stand the kid anymore, constantly running around and screaming while I'm trying to work, and just overall being a little crap. My sister-in-law Emma was over the other day picking up Kyle and made some comments about getting rid of some of the dangerous furniture in my house, like tables with glass edges and stuff, so that my home is safer for their son, and made a joke about baby-proofing my house because they're planning to have a daughter. This pissed me off, but I didn't say anything. The situation hit a breaking point last Friday when I was talking about the 1.5 week long trip I was going on with my girlfriend on the 15th. Me and my girlfriend like to travel somewhere nice at least once a month. We couldn't the past couple months because of Kyle, but I promised my girlfriend we would go somewhere exotic for Valentine's. Upon hearing this, they got pretty mad saying who's gonna take care of Kyle, that I need to stop these childish trips, and that I need to take more responsibility because I'm an uncle now. I'm not gonna lie, after hearing this, I freaking snapped. I said that their demon child isn't my responsibility, and I'm not just gonna give up my life because they screwed without a condom. It got pretty obscene from there, and some horrible things were said. My parents and Emma's parents are on their side and extremely angry at me for refusing to pull my weight. My parents said that this is my duty and I should be sacrificing everything to help them. It's honestly got me really down, and I've cried my eyes pretty much every day since seeing those messages from my family. I'm starting to wonder if I really should be taking more responsibility. Am I the jerk for choosing my trips over my brother and nephew? I say you're an uncle, not a parent, Live your life. You have no responsibility over this kid, no matter how much pressure or shame they try to bestow upon you. If you're 24 years old and you've got a situation where you can go on monthly trips and afford that, don't throw those experiences away because somebody else wants you to watch their kid, family or not. Our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving my boyfriend and his friends behind after agreeing to be the designated driver? My 33-year-old female, boyfriend 33-year-old male of 4 years is a big football fan. And he has a tradition of meeting up with his high school friends at a bar for Super Bowl every year. It's often the only time in a year he gets to see some of these friends because they're busy with their families and life. I don't like football, so I'm happy to be able to drop him off somewhere, have an evening to myself, and pick him up when he's ready to come home. He tends to go hard with the alcohol when he's out with this group. Last night, my boyfriend texted me that he was almost ready to be picked up, so I headed to the bar. He wasn't as ready as he made it seem, so I ended up going in and sitting down with them while everyone finished their round of drinks. He was pretty drunk, and he started getting handsy in a way that I wasn't comfortable with out in public, so I politely asked him to stop. I didn't want to make a scene, so I leaned in to whisper in his ear asking to stop. He got angry and whispered back, "You should consider yourself lucky that I'm going home with you. I could go home with any woman here if I wanted to." He couldn't, but he's always been a dreamer. I was taken aback as he's never said anything like that to me before. I get he was drunk, but still. Anger set in and I excused myself as if I was going to the bathroom. I ended up leaving and texted him to let him know I left. Unfortunately, he had arranged for me to drive 2 of his friends home too. Wouldn't have been an issue, but he also hadn't communicated that with me. Instead of calling an Uber or taxi like I assumed he would, one of his friends called his wife. The wife had to wake their toddler up to go and pick them up. My boyfriend was furious when he came home and still is this morning. He slept on the couch and we had an argument before he left for work. He says I embarrassed him by just up and leaving. He vehemently denies saying what he did, doesn't recall getting handsy, and insists he wasn't that drunk last night. I also got an angry text from the wife saying that I was a jerk for leaving them drunk and stranded, forcing her to wake up her toddler to go and pick them up. She also had a vague, passive-aggressive Facebook post up calling me out. Now I'm questioning whether I overreacted. Maybe I should have just brushed off his comment because he was drunk and followed through on the commitment I made. I just felt so disrespected by what he said after I asked him to stop doing something that was making me uncomfortable. So, am I the jerk for leaving my drunk boyfriend and his friends stranded after the Super Bowl? I just can't blame OP at all because if I was in OP's shoes and my partner just said that to me while they were drunk, I mean, that would just make me heavily concern what they are doing when I'm not around. And it's so rude and over the top, and I'd want to walk right out of there too. I mean, let's be real, them getting drunk and ended up saying that is the kind of thing that can end a relationship. This next story is, am I the jerk for screwing up my boyfriend's interview by not doing his laundry on purpose? To keep this story short, my 25-year-old female, boyfriend 26-year-old male, had a big interview on Friday that could jumpstart his career. He's been planning for it for about 3 weeks. Usually I do all the laundry and take care of our flat in terms of cleaning. On Wednesday, he told me he wanted to wear a very specific blazer and it was in the bin to be washed. I usually do the laundry on the weekends because I'm a full-time uni student, plus I work part-time. So during the week, it's hard to make time to go to the laundromat. I told him I would do it Thursday night though, and he said okay. Mind you, he hasn't been working since he just graduated school in the fall semester, so since the end of December. His parents help him pay the rent until he gets a job. Anyway, Thursday rolls around and I get home from class and he's just playing a video game. And he immediately asks me when I'm going to do laundry since he's very nervous and wants it to go perfectly. I'm so tired from school because I had an exam he didn't even ask me about, so I feel irritated and say I'm going to do it later, but I'm going to nap first. He again says okay, and he's going to meet up with a friend for a drink to help calm his nerves. Anyways, as the title says, I ended up not doing the laundry because I was tired and also partially pissed off. He was super pissed, ended up wearing something else and saying that I screwed him up by not fulfilling what I agreed to. I thought this might blow over since he said it still went well despite me attempting to sabotage him, but he's not speaking to me still and has even said he may go stay with his parents over this. Was I really that much of a jerk? Very, very small yes, only because you did make the agreement. But let's be real, I think almost everybody is looking at this and saying, this guy was sitting around playing video games, going out for a drink, couldn't sacrifice any of that leisure time to do the things that he's particularly worried about if it's getting close. This next story is, am I the jerk because I sent an autistic guy into a panic attack by telling him exactly how my dad died because he kept asking me about it? I, 28-year-old female, was at work last week, and I have a coworker, mid-20s male, who's autistic. My dad died in a terrible accident when I was younger. As far as most people know, they're aware that he's passed but don't know the details. My autistic coworker came up to me the other day and started asking me personal questions. I didn't mind answering most of them, but when he asked me about my dad, I clearly told him I don't want to talk about it. He kept asking why and pried even after I repeatedly told him that it's sensitive. It got to the point I was pissed off. I told him that my dad is dead and detailed everything from how he died, all the injuries, the funeral, everything. It sent my coworker into a panic attack from the details. He had to leave work early. My boss pulled me aside to ask what's going on, and I told him what happened and he told me he'll take care of it. When my coworker came back the next day, my boss pulled him aside and proceeded to fire him because there have been 1 or 2 similar incidences. People were trying to pry and say that I was a jerk because he's autistic. I responded that there's a difference between an excuse and an explanation, and they're using his disability as an excuse. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP is necessarily the jerk for just informing them, but can the boss do that? Are they allowed to fire somebody because of things relating to their disability? Our next story is, am I the jerk for giving my stay-at-home wife a written performance review with suggested areas needing improvement? I, 33-year-old male, share one child, 6-year-old female, with my wife, 36-year-old female. She has another daughter, 13-year-old female, that lives with us full-time. We also have custody of our niece, 15-year-old female. The teens are each other's best friends. They share a large bedroom which was done at their request. The dynamic here is pretty much mom and youngest against the teens, with me being the referee between everyone. My wife has taught the youngest she can blame others for her actions to avoid consequences. She just says the word, one of the teens will get punished without question. There's no doubt she's my wife's favorite. I love her, but she's become nothing more than an entitled brat. As just a mere example, my wife and I had an appointment we both needed to attend. When we came back, it was apparent the pool had been used. They're not allowed to swim while we aren't home. As the youngest divulged, "Mommy, I was in my coloring room, I never went swimming." The teen said that was not true, she had gone swimming as well. Only the teens were punished. My wife refused to give the youngest any type of consequence. I later found her wet swimming suit hidden in the garage. My wife and I argued. I felt strongly she needed to not only be punished for swimming, but also for lying. After a relentless disagreement, I was silenced as she gave the youngest a very minimal consequence. The lying, blaming, and favoritism ultimately caused the teens to act out, understandably. Most of their consequences are done by giving more chores, specifically the chores the 6-year-old has. Or as recent, they were removed from their music lessons as a consequence. I believe they're so frustrated they don't even care when they verbally attack their mother after her unfair treatment towards them. After all, they already get blamed and punished for things they didn't even do. From my perspective, lashing out gives them a release. We have had countless tiring arguments. She'd either not see her faults, or we'd agree to do this and that, but it was never actually done. I decided to write her a performance review as a stay-at-home mom. Her areas in need of improvement, well, it was a lot. But I touched on how she needs to listen better, stop being biased, be fair in all of her decisions, stop making rash decisions without taking all 3 kids into consideration. I recommended her to give each child the same amount of one-on-one alone time to speak, or just be with one another. so it wouldn't be an entirely slap to her face. I gave her accolades on her strong points for other areas aside from parenting. I guess I felt this would work best because I could organize my thoughts on paper without her interjecting. However, it quickly backfired in my face. She was quiet the first hour after I handed it to her. Then she completely exploded on me. Said if we're going to do this type of crap, she'll get a private bank account and take half my paycheck every week. She further said the review was abusive and a manipulative sexist move. Am I the jerk? I think writing as a way of getting your thoughts out is a very valid thing, but doing it in the way of like a report card is just kind of demeaning and not the way to go about it. If writing your thoughts out is what helps you get them out clearly and everything that might be rattling around in your mind out, that's great, but don't make it like some grade that you give to your wife and you go, well, you failed this month. That's not much of a partnership. I think writing it out is a great thing, and you can still even have the paper, but you have to do it in like an actual face-to-face way. Whether you have to say to her, I'm not very good saying it out loud or off the cuff, so I wrote down my thoughts. This is what I think and where I think we both could work towards improving. That would be great. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not supporting my friend who's not getting child support? My male, 28, and female, 29, friends have been on and off for a few years. They've been friends with benefits for a while now. They used protection and she was on birth control. Recently, F was worried that she was late on her period. Waited for a few days, got the pregnancy test, and turned out she was pregnant. Both of them freaked out and together decided to not have the baby. A few days later, she changed her mind. She wanted to keep the baby. He didn't. He said he communicated this from the very beginning. Now she's pressurizing him to be a father or at least pay child support because she can't afford to take care of the baby on her own. And her parents are back home, so she's alone here. Plus, they're not super rich. He apparently made her sign a waiver years ago that if this happened, he won't be responsible for the baby in any way. It's a legal document. She forgot about this. Now, she and our other mutual friends are emotionally guilting him to discard the contract and help her out anyway. They've been calling him heartless and cold. He offered to pay for ending the pregnancy, but nothing more than that. She went emotional and crazy and started making social media posts about how men are all pigs and how her boyfriend, not boyfriend, a freak buddy, is dumping her when she got pregnant to get sympathy and getting him involved in the child's life. He got nasty reactions from people online and IRL and is super pissed. He also retracted his offer for paying for ending the pregnancy. She's been asking me to convince him to change his mind because we're friends. I said no because it's none of my business. She took it as me not supporting her. Now somehow I also became the bad guy. So am I the jerk? I was following the story along and I was prepared to deliver a verdict on whether or not the male friend was a jerk or not, and then OP swoops in at the very end and is somehow being accused of being a jerk because they don't want to get involved in a situation that doesn't involve them. I think neither OP nor the guy are jerks. I mean, he clearly got that legal document for a reason. It's like somebody goes and gets car insurance, they get T-boned, and then after the fact, the insurance is like, well, come on, you can still pay for it, right? Our next story is, would I be the jerk for requesting a child be removed from my class due to his parents? I'm an art teacher at a school in a small town. Recently, I welcomed a new student to the class. He had previously been homeschooled, but had begged his parents to let him go to normal school with his friends. He's a great kid. He's already fit in right with the class and he does really great work. My only issue with him has been that he does not ask to leave the classroom. If he needs a bathroom, he just leaves. I'm not the strict, everything needs to be my way kind of teacher, but administration has a very strict policy for students outside of classrooms during class periods. I asked his parents to come in so we could discuss it, to try and get them to help me figure out a way to get him to follow this rule. They arrived and seemed like fine enough people, but then saw my photo on my desk of myself, 28-year-old male, and my husband, 31-year-old male, and they asked who it was, and I was honest. It's never been an issue before. They later called the school to report me for inappropriate behavior in the classroom. Mind you, I do not talk about my husband in class. I'm there to teach, not preach. Administration is definitely with me on this, but honestly, they've started sending me some really rude emails to my school-provided account. And I would like to honor their wishes that their child not be exposed to my disgusting lifestyle. I may be the jerk here because as good of a student as he is, I just no longer feel comfortable with him in my class. He loves art class, and there are no other art teachers at the school, so he would be removed from the course entirely, which I know isn't fair to him, but it's also not fair to me to be called things like groomer and accused of working in a school to corrupt innocent minds with my filth. So are these parents and the administration going to go around to every other classroom and make sure that every other teacher that has a picture of them and their partner gets taken down? I mean, we gotta save these kids from becoming aware that you might be able to fall in love with some other human and who knows, partner up with them. I mean, God forbid little Billy grows up to find out it's okay to fall in love with Susan or Joe. OP is clearly not the jerk, and this whole thing is so ridiculous, homophobic, disgusting. I mean, the list of adjectives that you could use here are endless. Our next story is, am I the jerk for making a teenage girl weigh herself at the top of a water slide? I work as a lifeguard at a water park, and part of my job includes managing the top of the water slides. I'm to make sure that no one does anything dangerous like going face first, cramming too many people on one inner tube, etc. I'm also instructed to ask anyone who looks like they could be over the weight limit, 250 pounds, to weigh themselves on our scale and deny them entry if they refuse. I'm not super comfortable with this, but it's much better than risking people's safety. Here lies the problem. I lift weights, and for this reason I'm very dense. I weigh 185 pounds, but somehow wear a size 6. Most of my friends also lift and have similar body compositions to me. For this reason, I have trouble estimating how much someone actually weighs. This problem presented itself last weekend when an overweight teenage girl wanted to ride the slide. She most likely wasn't over 250 pounds, but I couldn't be certain. I've gotten better at estimating weights, but my supervisor says if there's any chance they're over 250 to weigh them. So I approached her gently and asked her to please get on the scale. She met me with a snarky teenager attitude and said, "What if I refuse?" She was with a group of teenagers, some of whom were giggling. "Then you won't be allowed on the slide," I said matter-of-factly. She rolled her eyes and got on the scale, and her weight wasn't even close to 250, so I felt kind of bad. She then said, "See," and went along with her friends. Although she gave me attitude, I could tell she was embarrassed. Her face was red as she went back to her friends, who were all thin. I asked my supervisor how he would have handled the situation, and he said I did the right thing, that it's better to hurt someone's feelings than break someone's bones. However, yesterday I was called into the office of the owner of the water park. She told me she received an angry email from a parent about how I embarrassed their child in front of her friends. I explained to her that I was just following protocol, and she asked me how much the girl actually weighed. I gave her the answer, and she laughed at me and told me I could never get a job as a weight guesser at a carnival, and that I needed to do my job better. My supervisor's backing me up and saying I was doing what he required me to do. I'm thankful for his support, but honestly, this whole situation is making me feel like a jerk. I know teenage girls are a particularly vulnerable population, as I was a teenage girl not too long ago, and I could have possibly handled that situation with more care. But at the same time, safety is my first priority. Does that make me the jerk? I think the simple answer here is OP was just doing their job and they were unsure. Their job description and their training says if you're unsure, weigh the person. That's what the scale's there for. And honestly, when you're standing there, time is of the essence because everybody in this line wants to get on and go. You don't have much time to stand there and dictate, oh, are they 250? Are they not 250? You hearken back to what the supervisor says in your training. Better to hurt someone's feelings than break someone's bones. It's not like any of this was being done intentionally to shame somebody. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories